Welcome to Shardcast, the Brandon Sanderson podcast. We're a bunch of mega fans giving you the news, discussion, and of course, a whole lot of opinions about Brandon's works and the Cosmere. I'm Eric, and joining me is the Kelsier lover, Evgeni.
Hello, I love Kelsier, and I am Evgeni. Argent. I'm Argent.
Yes, that's how this goes.
The love of Kelsier got to you.
Yes. Also joining us, Kelsier hater, is Alyx.
Hi, I'm Feather, and I loathe him.
And last but not least is our Mistborn expert and Mistborn lover, who hasn't been on in a very long time on the show, is Matt. Hey, how's it going?
Hey, it's Matt / Comatose on the forums. And
Are you still Comatose on the forums?
I am. Yeah.
I should really put in the overlay Comatose on the forums.
I'm also Comatose on Discord, which is where I am more often.
Oh, yeah. Well, we'll talk about Discord today.
But I'm Comatose on the forums because I'm not very active there. So
yeah. Well, how long has it been since you've been on a Shardcast, Matt? Before Secrets in Stained Glass, I think?
Maybe.
Oh, really? That long?
I've been pretty busy with
Diceborn. It is being worked on. Don't worry.
I've been on some of the live. You've
been on some live things, yeah.
The live things, but in terms of pre-recorded.
Hey, what is Diceborn?
What is Diceborn?
Yeah.
Ask the people who are only tuning into this show because it landed in their YouTube algorithms, and they're like, "Who the hell are these guys?"
Yeah, Matt.
Good point. Diceborn is our actual play series using the, right now, at least, as of the time of this recording, using the Mistborn adventure game rule set. And you can find playlists of it on our channel.
Yep.
And there might be future seasons using other games by the time you're watching this.
True. We have a season that's more of a longer season, and then we have a mini series that's an Era 1 called Secrets in Stained Glass, which is this art. Wow. That's it. That's the show, everyone. We advertise. We're done, actually. No, we're not done.
Our fifth guest star has decided to drop by very unexpectedly. This is Dalish.
What does Dalish feel about Kelsier?
Her opinions on Kelsier are too enigmatic to be put into words.
Is it
so?
Meow?
Something along those lines, but I feel like that just doesn't capture the full depth of the experience.
I mean, I think we can say that she doesn't like ferrochemists because she keeps trying to take down that ferrochemical chart. Do you think that'd be a safe assumption?
True. She does always bother the ferrochemical metals poster, so that's pretty naughty.
Maybe she's pro Allomancy, and so she's pro Kelsier.
Yeah.
So we'll see how long she wants to hang out on my shoulder, but this is her favorite spot. So
there you go.
I will say this is scary. I have a playlist, so I'm not sure if I've updated this in a while, but the last one on my playlist is the Adium and the Adium retcon from 2 years ago.
That sounds about right, honestly. And I don't like how that was 2 years ago.
I know. I don't like how that was 2 years ago either.
I don't like that. Anyway, today, everyone, we are going to talk about our predictions for Mistborn Era 3, which is called Ghostbloods, which you can look at that reveal as our Brandon interview, our last one, which was pretty cool. Basically, we need to kill some time before Stormlight 5, so we're doing we can't do a lot of Stormlight episodes until that's out. So we're talking about Mistborn Era 3. Hey,
you don't want to do another round of speculations on how Stormlight 5 is going to end?
Well, see, that's the funny thing is that is going to be the previous episode that came out, so it literally will be the previous one, and then this one will be out. Even though that one was recorded last June, and this one's recorded this June. Wow.
It is June 1st.
It is June 1st recording, and this will be out June 30th.
In June.
The freshest of takes.
And Secrets in Stained Glass aired a year ago, and I also don't like the passage of time, actually. I would... Could we have a giant Bendeloy thing so we got more time? That'd be great. I would like that. So, it's called Mistborn Ghostbloods, so it's gonna be full Cosmere spoilers, guys. I don't know what to tell you. That's what we're doing here. And so could be secret project stuff for sure. Those are all out. So why am I even talking about that? That's a given in the full Cosmere spoilers now. So we had Mistborn Era 2, which was not one of the 3 planned eras. So Brandon envisioned Mistborn as a trilogy of trilogies. And so his original plan was we have the epic fantasy trilogy, and those characters sort of fade into mythology, as we've seen. Then there's going to be a modern day trilogy, which is 1980s era. And then there would be a third trilogy that is space opera. And this is expanded because Brandon accidentally writes books, as we know. And so he accidentally wrote another Mistborn era. And I actually did a ton of research for this, and it was really funny how he was just going to have era, the second trilogy, what is now era 3, just like have the Southerners and just be like, hey, what's up? Like, it just be known. And
They're here now.
Brandon correctly determined that, having some things in a second era to set up the middle trilogy is probably good. It's probably a good idea.
Although the South was set up slightly in Hero of Ages, I think.
No one's gonna remember that.
I think there's an epigraph.
There's an epigraph and an annotation, I think.
And an annotation.
I think calling that setup is ambitious.
It
as the original writer of, I think, what I originally called the Southern Peoples of Scadrial Coppermine article, I like that. It was like 2 paragraphs. Good stuff. Regardless, we're gonna get, a 1980s era tech type thing. By the way, Matt, I don't know if you heard that Brandon's pretty sure he's going to do a cyberpunk era. So it's not era 4. Era 4 is going to be cyberpunk, and era 5 is going to be space age.
Oh, cyberpunk is going to be
cyberpunk's kind of confirmed. He said it in a WoB where he's like, I need to be careful about not promising too many sequels, but also I'm pretty sure I'm going to do it. So
I thought he was going to work, for some reason, I thought he was going to work some of the cyberpunk elements into the 1980s, like era 3.
Nope, it's a different thing. No, there's going to be 5 eras.
Fresh as of like a couple of months ago.
Yeah, so it was in April in C2E2. So I thought I'd let you know, because
more Mistborn is, I'm always pro that.
And I think that part of it is just so he can get 16 Mistborn books.
I think that's a big drive, actually.
Okay, I can see the desire now. Yeah.
The 3 main trilogies will be 9. And then we have the era 2 is 4.
So if he manages to get 3, then it's 16.
Yeah. I think his challenge isn't going to be getting 3 extra books. It's going to be keeping it to 3 extra books.
Getting only 3. Yeah. And that is, of course, not counting, Secret History and potentially Secret History too. So.
Yeah,
those don't count.
Well, because even the Wax and Wayne books were supposed to be, that was going to be a standalone, was Alloy of Law, and then it burgeoned into a 4-book series, and we had that whole fun era of the Phantom where people were trying to call that era 1.5 because the second trilogy was supposed to be, which I'm glad we've abandoned that.
Be fair,
Wax and Wayne is just era 2 now.
That came from Brandon.
I
Brandon
know.
was insisting.
It should have been 1.5.
There was... I think we called it era 2, and then Brandon tried to change it to 1.5, and then people complained. And by people, I know Ian and I are one of the main people complaining about it. Pretty sure.
It's just confusing.
It is explaining the Mistborn greater series to people who haven't read it. It's always like, okay, so there's a trilogy, but then there's a trilogy of trilogies. But then in between the first and the second trilogy, there's a group of 4 shorter books. And, the structure of this series is...
What I've learned now is to not call what we used to call Mistborn Era 4... We call it the space age era,
or space opera.
Yeah, it's just easier to describe them rather than trying to use numbers, I think.
Yeah, it is. It is. And this one is going to be called Mistborn Ghostbloods, which I'm sure Alyx is just super thrilled about.
So for people who maybe this is your first episode with me,
welcome to the show.
Hi, welcome. I love the Ghostbloods. I was really exceptionally into the Ghostbloods on Roshar. They were my favorite of the crazy secret societies over there. Big fan of Mraize. He's one of my faves. But I'm not particularly fond of the things Kelsier has been up to since coming back. I really liked him in the original trilogy when he was the martyr who died, and that was very dramatic, and that was it. But yeah, since he's come back, he gets on my nerves a little bit, and I find him very aggravating. So
a little bit is a massive understatement, just to be clear.
Finding out that he's the leader of the Ghostbloods was mildly devastating. We'll use the word. Yes. And now he's my sworn enemy, and I want him to go down in flames for all of his terrible choices.
And we're going to talk about that today. And did I ping you to get you on this episode solely so you could talk about this again when we talk about Kelsier? Maybe.
The universe kind of aligned. I was supposed to have family in town this weekend, and then that fell through. So it was the forces at work to make sure that I was going to be able to be here to share Kelsier opinions.
Harmony was working things in the background to make it happen. Yes.
We know that Harmony was not doing anything.
we know that. We do know that.
Oh, poor Harmony.
Maybe God exists and he just doesn't do anything.
And also he's a New Yorker.
Yeah, that's what Seizen sounds like. I know that might not be what you picture.
Actually, Terra's accent is New York accent.
Yes. Everyone, this is a deep cut if this is your first episode, but I've done some amazing Dalinar narration. I think Matt knows personally of some amazing Dalinar voice acting from our Keeping Up with the Colons episode in 2018 or something.
I do remember this.
That was a great episode.
I'll link it. There's no video. It's just an audio with an image on it. There you go. The olden days. Why don't we talk about some stuff we know of this Mistborn trilogy? Let's just talk about some general facts that we know, because Brandon's been talking about this for a long time, and I have a document of 24 pages of WoBs, which we are not going to read through, but I've done the research here, guys. So, Matt, what do we know?
Well, we know it's going to be 1980s tech level, but not necessarily 1980s culture. So that 1980s would be maybe some early computer, but mostly pre-computer.
Main character is a programmer, so
yeah,
we gotta have some characters.
Right. And
that's right.
He said there was going to be geek culture and stuff.
Yeah,
and so there is going to be some cultural through line there.
Yeah,
stuff.
But not but when did
pre-internet? Yeah, internet would be later. Yeah, it's pre-internet.
Internet was 90s, right?
I mean, it started there,
but
it was a much smaller thing.
Yeah.
AOL's not going to exist. Gadriel Online is not going to exist in this trilogy.
The Coppernet.
The Coppernet. That's actually pretty good.
The Cyberpunk series.
Yeah, Cyberpunk, the internet's all over the place. Yeah, exactly.
Well, I'm trying to think what else 1980s. What's characteristic of that tech level that Brandon's playing with?
Cold War, right?
Yeah, I was going to say, aside from tech level, we know that there's kind of a Cold War dynamic between the North and the South.
I think he said Cold War, and we definitely... obviously it's going to be the North and South. He didn't specifically say that, but obviously that's what's happening, right?
I think that's pretty set up by the end of the Lost Metal.
Yeah.
What's going on between the Elendel Basin and the Southerners is one of the major hanging threads after the Lost Metal that did not really get dealt with. So it makes sense that he's saving it.
Yeah.
For
everybody's mad about whatever happened to the bands. Nobody's happy with each other.
Well, and also the readers are like, what was that plot line doing here? That. I thought we were going to do an episode, but that might just be this episode where we just talk about that a little bit. But
yeah.
Yeah, definitely that's going to be a thing. He's talked about like spy thriller aspect, which I think would work really well. He's also talked about like Alamancer SWAT team, but a long time ago. But he said that with Wax and Wayne doing more of the police procedural stuff, it might not be as much of that. Things can change, and so it might be more spy thriller, which, in my opinion, 1980s Cold War vibe in a Mistborn world, that sounds awesome
James
to
Bond.
me. Yes.
Like, yeah.
Ghostblood shenanigans and stuff. Like, Ghostbloods, literally, you have agents and stuff. There you go, right? How does that relate with the government and things? Like, presumably, like, they're working alone, not like as representatives of the government. They're not like a CIA branch or something, right?
Oh, the idea that the Ghostbloods would have any kind of like government legitimacy to their operations is distressing.
No, I don't think they would.
They would not. They don't want that.
No. They're criminal org all the way down. I feel
the closest.
Kelsier,
well, let's not say that.
Kelsier doesn't like authority.
Unless it's him.
Unless it's him.
Well, I think the closest they're gonna get to like being legitimized is a situation similar to what they have with Marasi, where she is a government official. She knows about them. She's willing to work with them, but I feel like she or people like her might turn and look the other way a little bit if Ghostbloods are doing useful things, but they're not gonna completely break the law to like help them or to get them out of trouble or anything like that. So kind of a soft, we know about each other. We kind of sometimes work together and tolerate each other, but we don't like each other.
There probably are just agents who are just like straight up, I work for the Ghostbloods and I've infiltrated the government. Like, Marasi's code, she wouldn't break the law, but probably other people would.
Yeah, well, and I think Marasi's choice at the end of the Lost Metal really sets up that division,
true,
right? And I could also see like the Ghostbloods having like shell corporations, like Ghostbloods Co. You know, like or whatever.
The set,
or the set.
Well, no, the set were they were not that. No. Yeah. Brandon talked about it, right? The set. I know. They saw what Kelsier was doing, and they were like, "We want." They were the store brand Ghostbloods.
Yeah, it has the vibe of like someone early on knew about what the Ghostbloods were doing and spun off their own thing that got pretty wildly nasty and out of control.
Yeah.
So
and I think one of the big distinctions is the set seems very bought in with like the old nobility, whereas like
Kelsier's not about that.
That's not super Kelsier's jam.
It is gonna be just so both weird but also cool to have like an urban fantasy. It's like there's just big corporations and things like that. Like that's going to be an interesting vibe.
Like coin, like jumping and lurching in like we've already seen a bit of that in Wax and Wayne, but 1980s New York, with metal powers, like it really changes things.
Well, and with medallions and how that's going to affect things. Like magic's going to be all over the place. It's going to be cool. It's urban fantasy. It's cool.
That's a question I have about tech. Do you guys think the computers of Scadrial are going to be like just like our computers, or is there going to be an element, like a magical element to Scadrian computers using like the medallion technology?
So we have seen unawakened steel mind in the Sunlit Man.
And like those awakened, like Fort's tablet and Tress. So like
Fort's tablet had awakened circuits, predictive circuitry. We have seen in Tress Ceslo, which appears to be the sorceress's like rocket AI. That might also be an awakened thing. It could also be like a Sion thing or something like that. We don't know. But Ceslo doesn't sound like a Aeonic name, so I don't know what's going on there. So because we need to get to a place where we have awakened metal minds, I think Scadrian computers are going to be, like, from early on, they're going to be hybrids between technology and, like, maybe, like, I don't know if a few decades or whatever the time interval between the Era 2 and Era 3 is, I don't know if that's enough for the Scadrians to, like, pick up enough awakening. Because, like, we've seen the Ghostbloods have access to awakened identity locks and stuff like that. But I don't know if that's going to propagate to the rest of the world. But even if it doesn't, maybe you can shove, like, I don't know, like a copper mind for storage, or either a steel mind or a zinc mind for processing power, or something like that. So, like, I'm feeling the hybrid. And that also, I think, sets up the cyberpunk era.
Totally. I like the idea of, like, a copper mind drive, right? Like, like that synthesizes really well.
I think, you know, seeing a lot of the Malwish technology, a lot of the Southern technology, there's also, you know, I think we've talked a lot about, like, the way ferrochemical processes could show up in computing. But I think there's also some really intriguing ways that you could potentially use, like, mechanical allomancy in a computer. Like, I'm not much of a computer scientist myself, but if you have, I mean, you look at, like, the little allomantic grenades. What if you had one of those that's just the size of your hard drive that's doing, like, time dilation stuff to make your computer run faster? To move data through the circuits at a faster pace than you could at normal time speeds. You know, what if you had, you know, microscopic little, you know, steel and iron pulling and pushing mechanical parts within. As soon as you have allomancy that doesn't need to come from a person, that can come from, you know, a little cube, even if it's like the size of a grain of sand. If you have one of those doing little pushes and pulls in a hard drive, there's all sorts of stuff you could do with that, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, CPU chips are down to the like a single digit nanometer scale. And obviously that's with, like, modern technology, but
how much can you miniaturize those things?
Yeah. Do you have to encase the whole thing in aluminum to make sure that you can't mess with it from the outside, or that those forces don't come outside of the computer box and things like that?
No, I love the idea of a circuit that, because we use gold and other metals in our circuitry, I love a circuit that is like, you know, various allomantic metals and or harmonium to do things.
Yeah, like, I feel like the whole point is we are going to get regular tech, but we're going to see the regular tech in our world be very integrated in with the metallic arts, because that's kind of the point of Mistborn, to have the magic be all over the place and see how it connects with society in a deep way. Right? Because otherwise, what are we doing?
And that's how Brandon conceptualized, like, the trilogy of trilogies, right? Is that not following one cast of characters throughout, but following, like, the world and the magic and seeing that evolution.
How are the religions going to evolve? And all these sorts of things.
I mean, you can imagine, like, a smartphone that has, like, 17 different medallions embedded into the back of the case, and you can just tap through whatever you need.
Hopefully Brandon finds that flowchart.
Well, if he doesn't, the Maoists are going to forget how to make medallions.
And, you know, are they going to have, like soothing and rioting devices that are, like, you know, like an extension of the soothing and rioting parlors we have in Era 2, where people are using that, you know, as almost like a mind alteration thing.
Yeah, but aluminum's going to be common.
Externalize that as like a device, like, oh, I need to chill out, I'm gonna hold my chill.
Yeah, you don't take a smoke break, you take a soothing break.
Or, like, oh, I'm gonna go to this fun party rave, and everyone's got, like, rioter, like,
little riot patch.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting if we're talking about like Cold War era stuff, seeing what that does to like propaganda in society, because that tends to be a thing that governments lean into when you have this external enemy that you're worried about, things like loyalty. And I wonder if you would see things like mechanical soothing and rioting set up in like population centers where we can like
some kind of soothing stations
we
perhaps
feel like are treasonous.
I flashed back to Era 1 so hard.
They're like, well, that was a good idea before. Maybe they'd forgot.
It would be fascinating to see some of like the Basin culture lean back into some final empire techniques that are more authoritarian to try to not even necessarily control their population, but just like keep them in a line that feels necessary. Manage the population.
Manage the population because we're under an existential threat type thing, and they think it's justified. Yeah.
Yeah. I think authority figures from any sort of background will fall into those traps when they feel insecure. Freedoms are the thing you compromise on when we're facing a threat and an enemy.
McCarthy trials type stuff like that could be.
Yeah.
And the Basin government, I would not say is particularly robust. So I feel like it could be very susceptible to such things because they don't, like it's very Ellendale focused. Like we didn't really get the Civil War aspect.
Not only is it Ellendale focused, but the northern... I was going to say Northern Water Tribe. The Basinites, they are a society and a government that has lived like this idyllic life of peace, and so the government itself hasn't struggled really up until essentially what we see now. Yeah, I'm sure there have been like unrest and I don't know,
corruption and different things. Yeah,
Era 2's been the biggest conflict so far, right?
They are a young nation in many different ways, and so they are going to fall into kind of the pitfalls of like, you are a country, you gotta go through some stuff to figure out, because like, yes, I agree with you, Alyx. When you're feeling threatened or insecure, or when there is an outside danger, like there are what feels like basic natural human instincts that go, protect at all costs. And at all costs encompasses, everything that is within your control. And if you were a government, what is within your control are your people. And so you start making the sacrifices there. That feels like a natural thing for governments to do, unless you've gone through this a couple of times and you know that, this is not a good idea. Let's make sure that we cannot do that, even if we are trying to.
And I think this is something that has been sort of an underlying theme in Mistborn, even from the original trilogy. If we look at things like Elend's proposed reforms in Well of Ascension, where he tries to institute this extremely democratic government on the heels of the most repressive imperial state that has been around for 1,000 years. And, I think there was some clunkiness with the way that theme was engaged with, but the underlying thought is we were seeing a populace that was fearful and didn't understand sort of the freedoms that they were being given by a new government, and was very willing to give up those freedoms in exchange for something that felt safer. When you have an external threat, like there's armies outside of our camp. We don't want an elected official. We don't want a parliament. We want a king who can do stuff and protect us. And we want that authoritarian vibe felt safer, particularly for a populace that had been under those sorts of strictures before.
Like, go fix the problem. Come on, what are we doing arguing?
And it's familiar.
Right. It's going back to what we had before and what we like, what's known, what's the known quantity. And I think what'll be interesting for the Basin is the Basin maybe was not raised under, these are people who did live under a very free and prosperous society for the most part. But I think there is still a little bit of like the final empire is still in the history. People do still learn about what things were like back then. And, we've already seen that there are groups like the Sliverists who romanticize the way things were in the final empire. And it's easy for people to take history that they didn't live through and twist it into, oh, things were better back then. Things were...
It wasn't that bad in the final empire.
We should get the Lord Ruler back. It was great, actually.
It was actually not that bad.
It's actually not that bad. And,
he made the difficult choices.
The people in the government, they just can't do anything. And so we got to have someone who can act.
Mm-hmm.
That's actually connects kind of pretty well with Harmony, honestly. Like, I can actually see a big through line there. It's like, we need something to do anything. Come on, guys.
There's also a WoB that we're going to find out more about Sliverism in Era 3.
I would hope so, because we don't know anything. I feel like.
There's no way that you can write like a even a fantastical Cold War sort of story without having it be sort of deeply political in that way. And I think deeply political doesn't have to mean that it's talking about like modern day political hot button issues. It can just be the politics of what do people in power do? How do people who are being governed react to the people in power? And what is the interplay between sort of a government and the governed, particularly in the face of external threats and, internal threats as well. So those are interesting questions.
How could it not have tons of political intrigue, right? Like it just will, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the Lost Metal touched on that a little bit with the center of the Elendel versus the outer cities.
Yeah, and so I worry about that a little bit because I don't know how well Brandon does with political intrigue sometimes, but maybe if it's like that's the main focus, he can really focus on it and like make it good, right?
And I think Mistborn, that's always been a stronger theme than in Stormlight Archive.
Absolutely.
Like Stormlight Archive, you have like the politicking between the princedoms, supposedly. But then what usually happens is Dalinar just bulldozes through and we don't really deal with it.
Speaking of authoritarians.
Much like in Era 1, the great houses were politicking, and then first the Lord Ruler and then Vin/Elend bulldozed through their politics.
Yes, exactly. It was very in the background. But I think maybe more present as a theme. Like it felt very... And maybe it was because... how Vin was introduced as an outsider and had to kind of wheedle her way in. There was always this sense that there's all these like games going on that she just was too low to like get into before she blew it up.
And we got a lot more of the political intrigue in Era 2, particularly Shadows of Self.
Love Shadows. Shadows is my favorite of the Era 2 books.
Same.
So.
Well, and I think Era 3, from what we know of it, might have a lot of Shadows vibes because we've also talked about like he's mentioned there might be like a serial killer element or a spy element, and those are both things that are very
a Mistborn serial killer was what he said in 2009 and a few times after, and he kind of connected that with like an Allomancer SWAT team to kind of take it out, but which he might not do because he did a lot of the police procedural stuff.
Can I give my theory on the Mistborn serial killer element?
Go for it.
That's what we're here for.
So I'm thinking it will be the product of like the Set's work, right? Because they kind of have implied they're setting up some sort of breeding program, which is like a callback to the Terrace.
You think the breeding program or the hemalurgy?
I thought the breeding stuff was completely closed.
Yeah, because
because of the society,
was the community.
Like,
that was the community.
I don't know. I feel like maybe the community might still. I don't know.
Maybe
like
it wasn't
those
the only one.
But certainly,
like we're having kids, right? So
Yeah, but they like rescued all of them, and that like
Yeah.
but them experimenting with like universal hemorrhagic spikes that can give powers to anyone, that has always felt much more like, oh, they finally figured out how to make someone into an element.
Yeah. So regardless of how they get there, like they have a couple routes. Like I think either someone picked up the set's work, or like a sliver survived, or something.
Honestly, the Ghostbloods could have just made it, right?
Well, but my other theory is that Kelsier or the Ghostbloods are going to be the suspect, and it's going to be ambiguous whether like the Mistborn they're chasing is related to Kelsier somehow, or is like part of the set's legacy.
Because they do have that research that Moonlight and Maris stole.
I mean, the other thing is like somebody already made the bands. Somebody designed those, which are an incredibly powerful artifact that does give all of the powers. The bands in particular give powers at an extremely like high level. You are a powerful Allomancer, I think, and full Ferrochemist at the same time.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I mean, we might just be seeing the same technology that created the bands like at a lesser form. We've made something that gives you normal level allomantic powers, that maybe this is a device that someone has created now that is maybe a little more energy efficient than the bands were. You know, you can't be godlike for 4 minutes, but you can be a end of the final empire level Mistborn for a week or so, sort of a thing. You know, you can just tap your way into having a Mistborn's power set with something like that.
That's the other big question about the bands, because like it's implied that they created by Kelsier, and Kelsier them behind,
but he can't. He couldn't have.
But the
I think he was involved.
He was involved.
I don't get,
but yeah.
But when we see him talking about, I like the questionable status of his allomancy, like you would think if he knew how that was done, I don't know.
There's so many questions about the bands that I hope are going to be answered, because Lost Metal definitely treated it as like a superpower MacGuffin type thing, almost. And I think
like a nuke, right? Kind of.
Yeah, but see,
I'm very much getting like Manhattan, like not necessarily Manhattan, but like this is of equivalent significance as nuclear.
But we also have actual nukes. We made them. We made them.
That's
like
true.
we could just we don't need the bands to do that. Like we could have both of those. So I would definitely like some of that mutually assured destruction vibes, because that to me feels so important for the Cold War, where it's like, I mean, we could attack them, but like they could just nuke us all into oblivion, right? And destroy the world.
One side has, if the basin has the
who has the bands at the end of
the
Lost
Malwish.
Metal? The Malwish got
but
that.
they're drained.
I know they found them drained, but I couldn't remember which side actually ended up having. Okay, the Malwish. So it could be an interesting thing with like if the basin invests in this like
rocket Trellium
metal bomb sort of technology, while the Malwish are on their own finding a way to recreate the technology of the bit. Like we could have 2 different flavors of weapons of mass destruction against each other.
Because that's another thing I want, right? Is that the northern and southern technology and that clashing, that feels like that also is going to foreshadow like the rest of the Cosmere as well. Like I like that.
I thought about that, but I think the issue here is that, so first of all, we have the Malwish have the Malwish people from Malwish.
Yes, from Malwish
is where the Harmonium is. And so you have that kind of bomb, because they already have, like, they were going to bomb the Temple of the Sovereign. So they have that kind of nuke. And then up in the north, we don't actually have like a steady supply of Trellium. like maybe there are like spikes here and there like left over from, but like my
much of it do you need?
impression, well, maybe you don't need that much, sure, but I don't think any more Trellium is going to be produced, and like they're gonna find some in like spikes in agents of the set, and I know for a fact they do have like Dumad and Getruda had well, I guess now Wax and Wayne have those spikes. So
Yeah.
but like I don't know if there's enough Trellium in the north to be like to serve this purpose of, oh, we have these super weapons. So I almost like the idea of leaving the south with drained bands and their harmonium bombs, and the north goes, we lost the bands, we need to figure out how to recreate them. And so, that also plays into kind of the north versus south idea, where the south is more technological and the north is more magical.
Yeah, that's a good interplay too. Oh,
I like
so many
that
juicy things here.
So many juicy things.
In terms of the availability of Trellium, though, I mean, do we want to like flash on screen the first listed WoB that we have here?
Yeah, we should probably do that. Yeah.
Involved Trell might be in Era 3. I mean, that could potentially be a recruiting strategy for these sort of Trellists. If they are able to create sources of power in a society that has maybe lost a lot of its power sources before.
Yeah, let me read this. So this is from December 2018. So post bans, but pre-Lost Metal. Trell, who is he? Or if you're not going to reveal that, when will you? Brandon, it's going to take a little while to dig into that. It's going to need Mistborn Era 3 is all the Trell stuff. And then they talk about like, I want more Wayne, and we'll talk about that too. But that's interesting because it felt to me like Lost Metal definitely dealt with a lot of Trell stuff. So, but like autonomy is still around, right? That's kind of the thing. And so like this could be like a temporary loss, and then we get more autonomy Discord stuff, which we'll also talk about. There's so much to talk about. I don't know what this outline's going to be. I don't know what these timestamps are going to be in this episode. We're going to go all over the place.
And we could do like 50, 70 years or more, you know, like so it could be like, oh, with Telson being defeated, Trell's plan is done, but then they have decades to make a comeback, right?
Well,
so it could be this is like the thing with Trell bubbling to the surface again because they've had the time to rebuild.
So two things. One, this is 2018. This was probably before Brandon started writing The Lost Metal.
That I agree with, for sure.
I agree. Yeah.
So I feel like this is just, based on what we have seen in The Lost Metal, I feel like this WoB is just no longer accurate. I think he just pulled a lot of that Trell stuff into The Lost Metal.
He pulled more Trell forward than he expected. Yeah.
And the other thing is, here's my understanding of what happened with Trell in The Lost Metal. Telson was going to become Trell.
Yes.
But there isn't a Trell currently.
Yes.
There is Bavadin putting on a mask and going, hi, I'm Trell. And like she is creating a Trell out of Telson. But one doesn't exist. Maybe one did exist back then because we have the Taldane Trell. But I don't think there is one.
The construction worker foreman guy on Taldane. Just so people know. Full page spread of that guy. It's like, hey, I'm Trell.
Going,
what's
hi,
up?
my name's Trell. Yeah.
And that's it. There's no more information there. It's just there's a guy on Taldane named Trell. I'm very curious if he will still be there in the White Sand prose revision. What's going to go on with Trell and autonomy?
He was there in the prose manuscript. He was there in the graphic novel.
Yeah, I'm interested.
And so I think, and like we've gotten rid of, like Telson is gone, Bavadin seems to have noped out of the system, or has at least retreated for now. So if we are dealing with Trell stuff in Era 3, like what is this? Who is this Trell that we are dealing? Is she bringing the Taldanian foreman into this? Is she creating a new, like, is she just
I think it's a new Trell.
So she's just redoing the Telson plan.
Well, but maybe with some modifications. Like, well, because like this is very like Bavadin is creating all these like avatars or aspects like all over. So like it does kind of like give a whack-a-mole feel of, oh, you bopped my one tendril, so another head of the Hydra comes up somewhere else. And
I've been avoiding opening the K-word can of worms, but wasn't there a thing about how Autonomy really liked Kelsier and his whole vibe? Like,
oh, that's right. That was the other part of my idea.
That's a
Thanks
wob.
for reminding me.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's a wob that she either likes him or like admires him.
So I'm worried that if we just do Trell stuff again, it's going to feel too much like Era 2. And so I'm worried about that. On the other hand,
especially after the Lost Metal. The Lost Metal was extremely like Trell is the big threat.
Yeah.
This is
to the detriment of dealing with any Southerner plot lines. So it's like we kind of need to deal with Southerner.
Or Civil War plot lines.
Or Civil War. Yeah, none of those. Like it was background. And so we kind of need that political intrigue to come into the foreground. And I think this is one of those Brandon, like, yeah, I recognize that this is a thing. It is going to be a thing, but it's not this book. Type thing.
I could buy Trell more being in the, or I'm using Trell, whatever
autonomy stuff.
Autonomy stuff. I could see that being more background and having the main conflict be more less of a like good versus evil and more of a the like Cold War. Like these are these two sides that both have understandable positions and also positions that are more corrupt or bad. And they're opposed and kind of navigating that a little more.
The more I think about it, the less I want autonomy in Era 3.
Well, you might be out of luck, but maybe the swap is just superseded. That's super possible.
I think this is just superseded, because the more I think about it, the more it feels like any amount of autonomy in Era 3 is going to be, on one hand, repetitive. Because we've recontextualized all of Era 2 as an autonomy conflict. The entire purpose of Harmony's sword was to deal with autonomy's avatar at the end of the day. So all of Era 2 is about that. On the other hand, like if you were to do kind of a more subtle, autonomy, like it feels, obviously, who knows Bavadin's personality. We know so little about her, but it feels wrong for like my mental image of this vessel to go, okay, I'm gonna meddle on Scadrio in Era 2, and whoops, I got defeated. A big part of her is that she respects it when people are able to stand up for themselves. She says something to that effect to Wax, like when like the truck crashes and they're having a little bit of a conversation. She's like, "Oh, if you can solve this, then good job." And then at the end, she retreats. She pulls her perpendicularity out of the system. Harmony is able to see the future again. All of that, and so it feels wrong for her to come back and do the same thing again in half a century.
Yeah. And I wouldn't say the same thing, like using the name Trell.
Well, but like metal.
It
doesn't need to be Trell. Like what is like, she comes back. What is she doing? She is either elevating an avatar, that feels like Trell. She is either dealing with regular agents, that's just a set, or she is getting down and dirty herself. I don't know if that, like, I cannot possibly imagine Era 3 being autonomy showing up and like punching Harmony in the face.
Yeah, I feel like across the Cosmere, nobody even as little as Harmony is able to actively do, nobody wants to pick a fight with Harmony because he is just the most powerful shard on the server. You don't go head to head with Harmony right now.
So I hear what you're all saying, Evgeni, and I'm very worried it is going to feel repetitive if we do more Trell stuff.
I agree with that.
A few thoughts I have though. One, I do think there's still a lot of weird Trell stuff that have not really been adequately explored. They're like, what are the men of red and gold? Like this, you just okay, like that's just a thing. Like maybe we'll explore that. I think there's room for, and maybe this is just my dream of Kelsier taking up autonomy, because I think that would work pretty well, actually. Like, I feel like the Ghostbloods could, they wouldn't like autonomy and go after autonomy stuff, right? Like, there's room for this to occur differently. And third, Era 3 is one of the original trilogies, right? That, like, maybe there's going to be some crazy stuff. I did want to mention, I do apologize, we don't really have a strict outline, and so we're just going to talk about cool stuff. But important to know that Era 3 are going to be more Era 1 size books. So Era 2 were about 100,000 words, except Lost Metal. Lost Metal was a bit bigger. Whereas Mistborn was 200,000 words and like to 250,000 words. And Stormlight's 400 to 450,000 words. So, and he's also going to write them all the way through. So I think we're going to get a much more connected trilogy. I think some crazy stuff's going to happen. We will talk about Discord, don't worry. So, I don't know. I think, like, we're in a much more Cosmere open scenario. It's called Ghostbloods. I don't know how much the Cosmere level is going to be, but I could see, like, that we get some Scadrial versus Taldane stuff even. Like, Taldane's apparently important. Here, that's a conspiracy theory. Maybe that's why he's doing the Lexan prose.
Like, we gotta nail down the Taldane stuff. Yeah. So I have a thought about this, which might be a little bit of a longer thought. But I think, so I did not particularly enjoy how external the Lost Metal was. I think that the threats were very, this is Offworld stuff coming in and posing a threat to the Scadrian cast. In addition, I think to the fact that I feel like it went a little bit heavy on introducing several off-worlder Ghostbloods who had a lot of screen time, and it was just, for a series that is supposed to be about Scadrial, I felt like it was a lot of the rest of the Cosmere all piling in all at once, and I thought that was kind of to the detriment of the plotting. You know, the focus of the series, I just wanted to be a little bit more Scadrial focused. In terms of this series being Ghostbloods, I see a way that it could be done that keeps a lot of the focus on Scadrial, and I think you could do really interesting things with it. I think there's no getting away from the fact that I don't necessarily anticipate that Kelsier himself would be a protagonist or even maybe a direct antagonist, but I think there's no way that he's not a plot force. This is a less of a character even, and just more like the actor that is making things happen that the plot is precipitating from.
And Brandon, not to interrupt, but Brandon has definitely said, yeah, you're not going to get too much Kelsier in Era 2, and that's going to be more for Era 3 stuff.
Era 3.
Like, yeah, 100%.
But I think that causes kind of an interesting dynamic where perhaps we saw as much like off-world threat in the Lost Metal, because Era 3 is going to be about sort of like Scadrial feeling like it needs to figure itself out because there is this greater Cosmere threat, which we know that's Kelsier's priority. He is all about finding ways to protect Scadrial and shore up its defenses and improve its magical puissance at any cost. I think he makes bad moral decisions in pursuit of that goal, but it is his goal. As soon as he found out about the wider Cosmere, his first thought is, oh, I need to understand this because I didn't realize there were threats out there that could come for us. And I think that maybe poses an interesting sort of double Cold War dynamic where you have the Basin and the Malwish who are sort of at heads and are feeling this protracted strain between themselves. But you also have the groups that are thinking of themselves like the Ghostbloods as protecting all of Scadrial or even Harmony's faction, feeling that tension with the rest of the Cosmere. They're feeling besieged by all of these other threat actors. And you can point to something like, hey, another shard got a really strong foothold on here and almost got something really terrible. We pushed that one out, but we need to be focusing on making sure that doesn't happen again. And then I think you can have a very Scadrial-focused plot where you're looking at cleaning your own house, you're looking at shoring up your own defenses within the context of there being other threats out there, but it doesn't have to be about off-worlder threats coming in or interacting with another planet necessarily, so much as just the threat of it happening is enough of a driver. I'll go a little further because this is just spinning thoughts. I think it makes an interesting role for Kelsier as a person in this scenario of if his goal is to make Scadrial safe, but you have two warring factions of Scadrians who are not getting along and who are, I could see him being the kind of person who's like, this is a good thing because it's driving technological innovation, like an arms race
absolutely
can be good for Scadrial as a whole, but you have to carefully manage that to make sure it doesn't actually tip over into destruction.
Oh, that's
how
good, Alyx. Yeah.
How much are the Ghostbloods playing both sides of like, we got to keep the threat up, so we're all going to make this technology, but are we laying seeds to try to like unify the Basin and the Malwish when we need Scadrial to be Scadrial?
And make sure to not like actually get the mutually assured destruction. Like they're both having people like, oh yeah, let's run Manhattan Project-esque things. But also we're going to send agents if you like actually try and go attack things, and maybe that goes well and sometimes don't, right?
Yeah. And on top of that, how much does Kelsier being a religious figure to both societies play into this like idea of a potential unification? Is Kelsier playing both of these societies as like, we can run the arms race until it seems like it's getting dicey, and then all of a sudden I can be like, hey, the survivor / the sovereign is here. I'm both. We're all one people now. We're going to go start fighting Rosharans because it's, the time.
Because it's Tuesday.
How much of that is his game plan to like, he has a very high level of credibility just because of who he is in both of these societies that we believe are going to be at odds with one another for a long time and see each other as threats and existential enemies and things like that. That's my structure vibes for where I think.
Yeah,
I have so many thoughts. I think we all do from all this.
Yeah.
I just want to pitch you on this idea, and I'll let other people have intelligent thoughts.
Okay.
It is the height of pick a war, any war, it doesn't matter. And Jesus comes down to the battlefield and is like, hey, you stop. You stop. Also, I killed a bunch of people. Peace about. And she just disappears.
No, not peace out. Peace. Now we're gonna go fight aliens.
Peace here. Now we're there.
Go fight the aliens.
I mean, what a sales pitch! I'm in, man.
Yeah. Jumping off Alyx, I really like all of that. And a way I could see Trell autonomy potentially being in the background, but not overpowering that, is, well, I don't think autonomy is going to leave Harmony alone. I don't think autonomy likes that Harmony exists. And so I don't think that conflict is over. So what I could see is more of a background thing where they're not really present even on Roshar, but maybe it's like a deal with the devil situation with the Ghostbloods. And autonomy isn't like it's the Ghostbloods doing everything, but autonomy is maybe providing, aid or information here and there with the goal of destabilizing Harmony, right? And so like the main driver is still the Ghostbloods. And I do really like the idea of these two societies encouraging technological progress, but then ultimately either they need to merge or one of them needs to take charge for a unified Scadrial. And I don't think autonomy, though, would want a unified Scadrial. So it would be interesting to see, like, even if we're not getting direct evidence, like if we're seeing seeds of, wait, like, this is kind of erratic, or this isn't really making sense with the Ghostbloods plan. And then there's kind of like, oh, like there's some seeds here of other workings of autonomy, or maybe of other shards even. But I do like the idea of the primary conflict, at least on the surface, being very Gadriel focused. And I do hope that's the route he takes.
I definitely think the Cold War aesthetic and dealing with the North and South, that's probably like the central thing for this era, at least like the core concept that we need to resolve by the end of it. That I think's true. So, oh my God, I have so many thoughts. I can't. So, firstly, I think it's very possible that other shards look at what autonomy did in Lost Metal and be like, man, this Harmony guy's maybe not as strong as we think he is. And like he actually like kind of cut pretty close to the wire. I could definitely see maybe not just autonomy, but like other groups. And we do know that Kelsier's always like, dude, if we were out in the open, the rest of the Cosmere would squish us like bugs instantly. So I feel like that's kind of a plot thread that we might need to explore, right? That fear needs to be really genuinely founded, right?
Because the Ghostbloods are spies and assassins, not an army.
Yeah. And so there's that aspect. So like I could conceive of like multiple shards trying to influence things to screw over Harmony potentially. And so here, I think there's a way to get it so we get a bit of that Era 1 style where it's like book 1, Cold War, thriller, we're dealing with that. We're dealing with Ghostbloods, dealing with that technology. I do definitely think that end epilogue with Kelsier and Harmony is setting up so many things. Because not only do we have Kelsier's agents, but like what's Harmony feel like? How does he feel about like counteracting what Kelsier is doing or not? And what does he feel about a Cold War between these? I do think the Ghostbloods would play both sides and try and increase the tech level because they're upset with Harmony about like just leaving things be in stasis. So we have book 1 where we deal with like some Cold War. It can't be defusing a bomb. We literally just did that. So we absolutely cannot do that.
With the Mistborn serial killer, if it's the impression is the Mistborn serial killer might either be an intentional like bioweapon, right? Like like a human weapon that one of the sides has designed and is either acting under orders or has like gone rogue.
Spy thriller where it's like, oh, one of our agents went rogue. We have to go get them. That's
one of our like souped up agents that we like.
That's classic.
Of spikes and medallions or whatever.
Particularly if you're in the midst of a Cold War situation where both sides do not want this to become kinetic and you have a rogue agent that's causing trouble. Now you have a threat of like, if they do something, it could just turn into war, even though they're not following our orders. Like we have to lock this down before both sides hit the button on the nukes, sort of a thing.
Great.
And it's not only the danger of it becoming kinetic. Like like this is, proprietary technology, right? This is, hey, this super soldier has secrets in them that we don't want the other side to get.
Yeah, they need to be shut down, and we need it to be us who shuts them down because we don't want them to fall into the enemy's hands either. Yeah.
And we don't know what our protagonist is like, because our protagonist might also be whoever they're getting instructions from. There might be a hidden motive of, oh, we don't want to just find this killer. We want to find them so we can study them and extract the technology, like depending on which side created the Mistborn.
Yeah,
right?
There's so. I think that is a great premise for a book one, and a great fertile grounds for spy thriller stuff.
And it gives you kind of a central, not necessarily villain, although that is part of it, but like a central problem to deal with, much like the Final Empire had the Lord Ruler and or the heist around him as like, okay, this is our... Yes, the entire Final Empire, there's so many messed up things. There's like these prophecies and like this ancient history stuff. That is beyond the scope of the first book. We're going to deal with this problem that is in front of us.
And I really like the idea of the Mistborn serial killer being kind of a villain, but also kind of the MacGuffin, right?
Yes.
Their significance isn't necessarily antagonistic. It's like, no, we're questing for that.
So you have that. I would love... Brandon said in her interview, we're going to get a Ghostblood protagonist, presumably this Terrace hacker girl. Love that. We need to see a Ghostblood protagonist. But I think we need to have other POVs from other factions, right? Someone from the South, right? Like we could easily have an agent, let's say if they're tracking down this Mistborn serial killer, where we have two different groups going after the same thing and how that interfaces. I really like books like that, so I think that would be awesome, personally.
Can you hold the rest of what you had for just a moment? Because I just realized that we haven't mentioned our protagonist in the list of things that we know.
Oh yeah, we should talk about the protagonist.
We should probably talk about the protagonist a little bit. Yeah,
and then I do have thoughts. But
I know.
As with many other things, we don't know much about her. We do know that she is a Terrace woman. We do know that she is a Nycrosil misting,
Argent.
Not a fairing.
Who would ever get that wrong?
So if you like other people on this planet thought she was a fairing, she's not a fairing. She's misting. And Nycrosil makes you a Nycroburst.
Continue. I'm having lots of thoughts all of a sudden. Sorry, go ahead.
Wow.
And Nycroburst, you are essentially doing a Duralumin like enhancement to someone else. Which I think is a very cool magical vibe in a realm where there are no Mistborn, I guess. Well, except for Mistborn.
So she's a Terrace woman. I'm getting a young vibe from her, but maybe that's just like a headcanon. She is a Nycroburst, and she is a computer programmer. She's a hacker. She gets recruited by the Ghostbloods.
Unclear, but we're gonna have a Ghostblood protagonist. So,
and she
was gonna get recruited for the Elementic SWAT team. Is what was gonna happen? Yeah.
Oh, maybe. Yeah.
Maybe that's what I'm thinking.
It was originally in the earlier WoBs a male protagonist, I think, and then Brandon,
and then it's like a Terrace girl and her brother are like the main characters.
So I have a thought on the sibling thing all of a sudden.
Okay.
But let's get through that.
I think that is all we know about her. I did see a few of you just itch to chime in, so. Let's go to Alyx first.
Yeah,
because I don't think she can hold it.
I've just had the most delightful thoughts.
I wonder if it's any overlap with what I'm thinking. Because I think we will react to similar things.
Possibly because some people know this already, but the stuff that we were talking about in terms of like the Mistborn serial killer potentially being a defector, I have a defected spy character. Matt is my DM in the game that I play that character, but that's an archetype I enjoy a lot. But
yep.
thinking about the idea of like this Mistborn serial killer that everyone's after for their own reasons, you know, probably the Basonites would want for one reason, maybe the Malwish want for another reason, maybe this person was an agent of one of those factions. Very possibly the Ghostbloods also want to get this person. I just sort of envisioned this idea of like our protagonist has been tapped by one of the main factions, like maybe they're a Basonite, and was like, hey, we have this threat. We want you to help us track them down. In the midst of that is approached by the Ghostbloods and is like, hey, we know they tapped you, but we want you to join our secret society because we really want that person. And then like in the midst of those dueling loyalties, maybe meets up with the defected person who has their own story and maybe their own reasons for defecting, and maybe those two become allies against all of the factions who are now trying to track them all. And I was just like, hey, a Mistborn, somebody with Mistborn powers and a Necroburst is such a fascinating little pairing to be little like allies on the run together, perhaps against all of the powerful factions of the world. And you know, like, what if they dated? Anyway, I'm a filthy shipper. I have to think about the like Killing Eve vibes of the criminal that everybody's after and the person who was originally tasked to track them down, maybe falling for their quarry a little bit and switching sides, perhaps. Anyway, I think that sounds really fun.
That's not what I was thinking, but it's very compatible. Very compatible.
Yeah. Cool.
So we're making the fanfics right now.
Yeah, I was thinking, going off of this, we need viewpoints from different sides. She has this brother. What if it's like, oh, they're these two geeks in their basement, computer hacker, programmer, whatever, and then they get recruited by different sides.
Oh, yes.
And so like the brother is like hunting for the South maybe, and the girl is hunting for the like, and then that's how we get
cross
the kind
purposes.
Of both sides of the conflict. Like, and he did that kind of with, not directly opposed, but he did the split viewpoint with Ciri and Vivenna.
Yeah, a little bit.
You know,
sure.
and so doing a structure kind of like that, but more morph it, and then we could have the whole best bud siblings, but then all of a sudden
they're enemies. Ooh.
With like the Mistborn in the middle.
This is good.
Like you have to have the crunchiest loyalty for all of the main characters that are all like loyal to different factions, but also each other. And
that sounds very on brand for a series called Ghostbloods. What do you think, Alex?
And I think it could also be like the sibling arc I'm describing could be a early book thing, or it could be like a more full book thing where like things don't really come to a head in terms
Matt,
of
your
like
cat
the
wants your
sibling.
attention.
Oh yeah.
Our sixth cast member has joined.
Do you have any
big show
about Mistborn Era 3?
Just glaring at you. No.
Well,
just wants attention. Oh,
there were believers in the Necrosil misting Necroburst cat girl. What was that?
What? Was this involved with the Aethers? That was like the cat boy Aether or something?
Yeah.
People people just heard that and like, what are you talking about?
Somebody did tell me there was a Catboy Ether, and I immediately got way more interested in Ether of Night and all of those things.
I think it's Aether of Night, actually, Alex.
You are deeply incorrect, actually, and you don't want to pick this fight with me on stream.
It's a joke. It's a joke started by someone on the 17th Shard Discord that the main protagonist of Era 3 is going to be a Necroburst trans cat girl.
Okay. Yeah. I mean,
right. Interesting.
I mean, a trans protagonist would also be good.
Awesome.
So I actually didn't get to finish my thought about the trilogy structure. We got on track.
Continue.
That's fine.
Continue.
We have a lot.
We have a nice segue. I just kind of mentioned that.
Yeah. So like we have this first book dealing with all of this stuff. We're dealing with the direct Cold War stuff. I love, Alyx, the idea of Cold War within a Cold War, because that feels also extremely Mistborn, that there's a secret conflict and then there's another secret conflict.
Cold War.
Yeah, and
There's always another Cold
there's
War.
always another Cold War. Yeah. And so I can definitely see book one, things go badly. We learn people's objectives and like why the serial killer's gone rogue or something. We don't know that the serial killer, we don't know. We're inventing fanfic here and speculating, okay? And so,
I'm getting huge like misunderstood motivations or something like vibes.
Yeah. Any Mission Impossible thing. Yeah, there you go. We're good. So book two, the Cold War is getting pretty heavy. Meanwhile, we are learning about these other Cosmere things. And I think that Brandon is introducing this Cosmere stuff in Lost Metal to prep us for this series, right? Like, I don't think he would do that otherwise, and I can see why people would say, it did feel a little weird in Lost Metal. That's not a problem for this series, right? Like, this series we can set up from the get-go. Yeah, there's there's stuff from other worlds dealing with this Scadrial struggle, but there's a lot of Cosmere characters involved. And then we have this trilogy where it feels consistent. Whereas like Lost Metal, I think the main issue was that it's like in the last book, we're just doing something different kind of thing.
Yeah,
right?
because Alloy of Law, Shadows of Self, and Bands of Morning were all pretty contained, Scadrian, and not even just Scadrian, but like basin stories.
Yeah.
And then Lost Metal exploded
within themselves too.
Yeah.
They're actually, aside from just sort of the set as antagonists, there isn't a deep through line between the four books.
No.
Alloy has its problem with Miles, and Shadows has its problem with Palm, and Bands has its problem with like the Malwish and the hunt for the thing, and then Lost Metal has like, actually it's the Cosmere now. But there isn't a ton of like just, the set is doing things kind of vaguely in the background a lot of these books, but that really isn't the focus until it kind of all comes together at the end.
I really like the idea of mirroring the first trilogy of it being very Scadrial.
Yeah.
Like have a small story to start that
spirals out of control. Bigger.
But I do agree, because this is one of the originally planned like tent poles of the Mistborn, whatever you want to call it.
Saga. It's a saga.
The Mistborn saga.
The Mistborn saga.
There will be a significant shard level event.
Yes.
Akin to Sized's ascension, right? So I do think if we're starting on this like spy versus spy, very Scadrial story, book 3 is going to have
insane,
like a bigger Cosmere significance for sure.
Yeah.
And that's kind of why I think Era 3, book 3 is Discord stuff.
Yeah, there's going to be that.
I did have a thought a little bit earlier on that I think when Alyx was talking about the North versus the South and the Ghostbloods kind of playing both sides and, escalating matters here, leaking secrets there to keep things kind of on the same level, because if one side tips too high, things might get bad. I did have a thought about, what if all of this tension essentially tips, and not just this, but like, especially if we're talking about kind of external pressures. If we like Era 3 as this is Scadrial hunkering down and getting ready for external threats, then what if all of this like prep stuff and pressure from the outside tips Harmony out of Harmony and into Discord? And going, okay, we can't just be prepping. We can't just be looking into our technology. We need to move now.
I don't know if Discord's going to be book 3. I think it could be book 2. That like things are getting out of control.
Kind of a ruin.
Yeah, and then like we have to deal with what is going on with Discord in book 3, and like and Harmony's losing it and like being really destructive or something.
I don't necessarily think we're going to get Discord, is my thought, actually.
Wow.
I think there are other permutations of that shard pair that could be more stable. I think Discord is like, Harmony is a stable state, but it's not a state that is able to act, we've found. Discord, I think, is a failed state that would be active, but not able to sort of sustain itself. I mean, you have the concept of Discord is not one that is fulfilling either preservation or ruin necessarily. It's just these shards aren't working together has become your intent. I imagine potentially by the end of the series, we are going to see maybe the shards separate to different vessels, or they are able to rearrange themselves into a new intent that is able to act in a more stable way. I could see in terms of this being like coming back to the Cold War ideology as a theme, finding a way for those shards to align in a way that's like, I'm going to ruin them to preserve us. Something that is protective or defensive in that way that we've kind of seen the rest of Scadrial do. I think Sazed like figuring out the shards is going to be a big part of this, and we probably will see a lot of that, but I don't know that we're necessarily going to see him actually fall into Discord. I think we might see other bad things happen in an attempt to avoid falling into Discord. And I think as the undercurrent of it all, we have always had a theme for Kelsier being God's not doing his job. I'm going to be God instead. That was the Final Empire. That was Secret History. That has been his MO since he's come back. I don't think he uses that power responsibly, personally. I think Kelsier tends to play it's like what Preservation said to him in Secret History. The lives of men are often his playthings in his plan. He sees big pictures. He takes big swings and makes big risks because he thinks they're justified. But I think they cause a lot of hurt and hardship for the people who actually live through them. Kelsier plays with fire, and I would love to see a point where he has made decisions where he overreached, or he thought he could play the whole chessboard all at once and things got away from him or got out of hand, and he isn't necessarily able to control it in the way that he thought he was going to be able to chess master everybody to his perfect little ends. Like that's kind of what I want of. He's a character for whom hubris is such a flaw. You want to see him bite off more than he can chew. You want to see him sort of.
You do kind of want that.
Step in it a little bit.
And if there is a time for that, it is a series called Ghostbloods.
Yeah.
I could see a ploy where the Ghostbloods or Kelsier, like seeing Sazed as almost a cautionary tale. Like, what if, not saying this will happen, but what if the plan is somehow to have the shards splintered? So instead of having one person ascend and become super powerful or impotent, it's splintered into like a usable form.
Democratize that magic.
That they can then weaponize, and then he can say, okay, other planets have shards either protecting or not protecting them, but the people of Scadrial can use their two shards in some like coordinated way because we've like broken it down into a piece that can be weaponized.
Matt, I'm so glad you bring this up because this has been a theory of mine since Lost Metal of Kelsier killing Sazed.
So I'm not saying he's killing Sazed. I'm saying he's splintering.
Oh yeah, that's always goes well for the vessel holder. But I mean, yeah, it's possible. But so let me paint you the scene. All right. So Kelsier's playing both sides. Things go badly in book 1. Cold War is getting crazy. Other Cosmere forces are starting to nibble and being problematic in book 2, right? As the war is getting crazy. And in book 2, Harmony is finally like, okay, things are absolutely out of control, and I actually need to deal with it. And that's what we switch to Discord. And he does. and I think Kelsier's actions directly lead to Sazed making that choice. Like if Kelsier made different actions, things would not be spiraling out of control where Sazed feels that he needs to. Right. So I think that connects with Kelsier making a pretty big miscalculation. So in book 3, we're trying to get a character arc for Kelsier, right? And so in book 3, Kelsier is like, okay, yeah, that actually went like really badly, and now my oldest friend is insane and like totally wrecking things. He's doing what I want, but not the way. Like he's finally acting. That's great. That's great. But like he's kind of like destroying a lot of things. And so in book 3, Kelsier tries to kill Sazed somehow. They splinter the shard, and that shard splinters. They use that, democratize the magic, or power spaceships with it. Boom. And maybe in that, Kelsier gets autonomy and uses autonomy's power to break or splinter Discord. Boom. There's my trilogy. I think you can get a lot of these things here, get a lot of this stuff. I really want the Kelsier versus Sazed dynamic to be really important, because that felt like the most important thing in Lost Metal. So having that be a focus, if Kelsier is a focus again, seems very important to me. And so I like this here. Or maybe in book 1 we don't get Kelsier POVs, but 2 and 3 we do.
Yeah, I definitely think Lost Metal is absolutely setting up this contention between Kelsier and Sazed. And the way that they want to do things is not in alignment, even if their goals of preserving Scadrial are. Sazed, I think, falls closer to where I am in terms of like being very worried about Kelsier making big moves without being prepared for the consequences all of a sudden.
Yeah, right.
But I think there's an interesting angle of sort of resentment on Kelsier's side of, yeah, I get it. Your hands are tied. You can't act with those powers, but this world needs a god. And so I'm trying to do your job without the foresight of a god. Somebody has to be God here.
I'm doing my best here. If you don't like it, like maybe you could deal with that then, right?
Yeah, you're going to get the like, I'm going to do it as a mortal as best I can, because you're up there in the clouds forced to twiddle your thumbs because you don't know how to make this work, sort of a thing.
So crunchy. It's so crunchy and delicious, right?
I don't know that I actually necessarily want them to like get to a point where one of them kills the other.
Yeah, I don't know if I want that either, but it could be pretty cool. It could be pretty cool.
I think it'll be set up for the conflict of it.
Yeah.
Right? Like as a possibility.
You know, I could see an interesting thing where the shards do split at some point of like, maybe Kelsier takes up one of them because we need to be able to act, and is supposed to like give it back at the end. But you know, like, I wouldn't if I was Harmony, I wouldn't trust Kelsier with something like Ruin.
No,
so.
I don't think. Yeah, no.
So
I agreed.
I feel strongly that Kelsier would not take a shard. Not autonomy, not ruin, not preservation. I haven't thought through the others, but I don't like fundamentally, as I understand Kelsier, I don't think he would want to be true divinity. One, because yes, he has established himself as a religious figure on multiple occasions, but there is like, he's never had the actual power. And from what little we have seen in both Secret History and throughout, I mean, I was going to say Era 2, but mostly the Lost Metal, I think he is very apprehensive of people who are on the power level of a shard. And he, in his own thoughts, sees himself as a mortal, as a person, not as a god. Like,
one eye for the people, one eye for, you know?
Yeah. He never, like, even back in Secret History, like, he had just died and set himself up as a god, a martyr to all of these people. in his thoughts, he didn't think himself as a god. In his thoughts, this was all a plan, all a ploy, all a ruse to give people an idea or an ideal to unite behind, to like overthrow the Lord Ruler and the Final Empire and all of that stuff. So like he is not a megalomaniac in that way.
I would agree.
In that way. Okay.
In that way. In that specific way, yes.
Yeah.
My preferred, it's Pride Month. The seven deadly sins are on everyone's mind. Mine is pride. Mine is hubris. So
of course, you're a Kelsier fan.
I understand Kelsier on like a spiritual level.
Yes.
I don't think he would take up a shard. In part because, honestly, in a weird way, in part because of like the reasons Reyes didn't want to take up another shard, because it would change him too much, because it would strip him of his humanity and mortality, which is critically important to who he is, as I understand it.
I can definitely see like Kelsier's interactions with shards have
also,
not...
I just realized I'm sitting in exactly the same way that the picture behind me is. You can't see my other hand, but I just realized that I'm doing the same thing.
Very good.
The hubris is coming through. But yeah, like Kelsier has not had experiences with shards that would show him that being a shard is a good way to like be a god of the people.
He could ascend.
The cat's back.
Oh, do you mean experiences with like other shards?
Yes, like his interaction. Harmony is totally powerless, even in his vast power. Preservation was this poor sort of weakling that couldn't save people in the Final Empire. Ruin just kind of went crazy and wanted to do an apocalypse. Like,
Autonomous wanted to take over.
Yeah, I think Kelsier's vibe of shards is like, this is not the way that you get stuff done. You become beholden to this power that like whacks you up so bad you're either not yourself anymore or you're not able to make good decisions. I could almost see that becoming a little bit of a philosophy for him, of a person who is like still mortal is a better god to the people than these shards would be. And enjoying putting himself in that role of like, I'm the god of these people, even if I'm not holding the power of a shard. And anything you can do, I can do better, because Harmony's not doing it.
Because I can actually do things.
Because I can actually do things.
Well, and I think, it is also that the progression of him. Like, I think that's always been a question with Kelsier's character, right? Like back in the Final Empire, the crew is all, okay, but what happens when we beat the Lord Ruler? Like, Kelsier, are you gonna like become a new Lord Ruler, or are you gonna give up and back away? And that question of like, would he give up the power? And if that plays into like Vin's decision at the well, for example, right? So I think I could see this book toying with that idea with Kelsier.
I'll say ultimately he did give up the power. He gave it to Vin.
He gave it up, although it was after he couldn't use it himself. So I do think there is still a question there. But I do agree with you. I think ultimately, I don't think Kelsier sees himself or anyone controlling a shard, like a full shard or full 2 shards, in the best interests of Scadrial. I think he would want to democratize the power somehow. Like, he's also seen like Ahti basically turned into a storybook villain. He's seen how the vessels are impacted too.
Yeah, it's really interesting to think about Kelsier's history on a Cosmere scale from Kelsier's perspective, right? He was just a guy, and then he died, killed by someone who thought himself a god. And was alive for 1,000 years and had these unimaginable powers and all of that. And then in the afterlife, he met with an actual god, essentially, punched him in the face, but eventually kind of got to understand him and understood that he is pretty impotent because he's dead. And then he
do.
met another god who wanted to destroy the world, punched him, didn't become friends with him, but kind of understood what his vibe was about. And then centuries later, didn't meet, but kind of had an encounter with another god who also wanted to take over the world. And like, if you were Kelsier, at some point, you gotta go, okay, maybe these people that are, and then your oldest, like, not best friend, but, you know, a close friend of yours also became a god, and then the power just stripped him of his ability to act. And so you gotta go, okay, maybe I haven't really had a good interaction with any of these gods. Maybe they kind of all suck.
This is not the way it should be, type thing.
Mm-hmm.
I hear all of this, and I agree. Kelsier would not usually pick up a shard. However, I think if the choice is between protect Scadrial and not do that, Kelsier is 100% picking protect Scadrial. And if protect Scadrial is there's a dead shard and it's gonna blow up the world unless I pick it up, or I need to grab this power in order to protect the people I love, he is going to do that. And so I think there's a way where the story could doctor itself in such a way where Kelsier has to make that choice, and that he knows he's going to lose himself, but he will do it anyway. And you know what? He'll probably say, Matt, I can't even with your cat. Like, please tell me your cat's name. What?
This is Zoe.
This is Zoe. Zoe's so cute and floofy, like Iona and
Just
Sky.
like
And I can't.
a little tap.
Little paw. Yeah. Yawn. Hey, pay attention to me. I'm so sorry, audio listeners, but please go look at Matt's cat because Zoe is very cute. So I just think there's a way where we could have that be in the story where Kelsier does agree. Yeah, like dealing with these shards, long term, we have to do that, right? I think Kelsier does agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe he needs to take up the power and make that sacrifice, and he's gonna, you know, maybe he gets through a character arc where he actually thinks, oh, the way I was doing things was wrong. I need to sacrifice myself into this amazing role as a god to protect Scadrial and give up my humanity, which I value so much here.
I think it's more likely if he's put in that position, he might do it by proxy through maybe one of our protagonists. Like, because I'm also thinking about Brandon, and like, this is a series, and reminding myself Kelsier is going to be very significant, but he is not going to be the protagonist of this series, right?
Yeah,
like, he's not going to be the main character. So how are our main if this is where the third book is maybe going, how are our main characters experiencing this and going to be going through this? So I think something like this, with Kelsier making a choice or something, could very well be part of it, but I think it'll be one of the main protagonists at that point will be more worked into whatever is happening.
Mm-hmm.
We just don't know enough of the cast to do any speculating on that.
Yeah. I definitely agree that there is a way that the plot could be set up to sort of force Kelsier into that decision, and that it would be plausible that he would make that choice. But I personally don't think like Kelsier's narrative arc would want to push him in that direction. And this is partially what I was thinking of in terms of like, Kelsier actually has some really intriguing narrative foils that I'm realizing, in terms of this vibe of him having the idea of like, hey, a mortal person who is not a shard is a better god than the shards could be. it almost puts him in the same position as like several of his enemies that we know he can't stand. Like there's a parallel with Hoyd, who has had exposure to maybe being a shard, but refused it and has instead technologically collected a lot of powers to make himself into a more powerful being and plays God on a lot of the planets that he goes to. And we know Kelsier and Hoyd can't stand each other, but there is also such an intriguing parallel with Rashek, with the Lord Ruler. In many ways, Kelsier has become the Lord Ruler of the next era. He is the immortal being that is the source of worship for all of the peoples of this world, he's not openly pulling all of the strings, but if he is in fact like playing a Cold War off of each other, he's exerting a level of imperial control over the peoples of this world and playing games with their lives to try to lead them to his own ends. And I think that's very fascinating in terms of like, if we did see Kelsier sort of go too far and push too far, would we maybe wrap around to a point where we have a protagonist that needs to like take Kelsier down out of power in the way that Kelsier himself once led to the downfall of the Lord Ruler?
That's it. That's pretty good too.
And does that snap Kelsier out of whatever it is that he was, because like going, there's also the like man out of time parallel between the two of them, which is also really
Our main characters could be fighting and literally stabbing Kelsier. Alyx, that could be a thing.
And that brings up like, if it does end up being sort of a foil and a theme for Kelsier, this sort of Lord Ruler parallel, it makes it even more interesting, the fact that our introduction to the concept of the sovereign was all of the Basonites going like, the Lord Ruler is your god? Okay. And going through all of Bands of Mourning, believing that this religious figure of the South, who was also a god of the North, was the Lord Ruler, and the fact that it wasn't, it's their other god, it's the survivor, is kind of delightful.
No, but actually yes, but actually no, but actually yes.
He'd sure like to be both.
It's significant that you can mix those two up so easily from just a basic description.
You have the Bands of Mourning, which gave, all the elemental and the chemical power, which
I could also see, since Kelsier is a cognitive shadow, and we know they're maybe more shaped, like if he's more shaped by people's perceptions of him, I'm interested to see if there's going to be some exploration of how being perceived as a god for so long. And Brandon talked about this a little, about like Marsh being Iron Eyes and death, like how there's some weird stuff that's happening there. So I can only imagine, even like without a full shard, there might be some like weird things happening on a like spiritual or cognitive level with Kelsier because of how he's
I would certainly expect some. I don't know if we're going to explore that, but like from a purely mechanical standpoint, I expect there to be some effects.
Yeah, I think that's always been a potential aspect of Kelsier's character that has always intrigued me, the like connection / identity manipulation of being an object of worship, with as important as cognitive aspects are in the Cosmere. I wouldn't be surprised if we've seen in like Rhythm of War that Kelsier's very interested in the heralds, who are mortal beings similar to cognitive shadows, who are immortal but are also these divine objects of worship, who are maybe worshipped in many ways across different societies. You have like some of the Rosharan faiths believe that the heralds are gods themselves. Some of them believe that the gods are that the heralds are subordinate to the Almighty. They all worship the heralds under different names. I think Kelsier would maybe be intrigued by the idea of like, did all of those different sources of worship muddle up their identities, or did they cancel out some of them to like help keep them more themselves. I imagine that's something he is keeping in mind of like, how different is the worship of the sovereign versus the church of the survivor, and how can I work that to my advantage if that reverence is having a spiritual, connective, cognitive effect on me as an entity within the Cosmere subject to these forces.
That's such a fun, and I don't think Mistborn as a saga will ever truly deal with this beyond maybe like a little bit of a reference here or there. But like that's such a fun story concept idea that is like, hey, you know, take this out of the Cosmere, you know, writing prompt, you are a god. Your believer, your worshippers can and do affect who you are as a person and as a god, and they are doing things you don't want. How do you go about fixing that?
What scriptures do you give to get them to lead to what you want to happen?
Do you call someone to the top of the mountain? Do you perform a miracle? Do you go and like Sharpie in an edit to the testament? Like, how do you deal with this?
That's fun vibes.
For people who are interested in a like really cool story like that, Brennan Lee Mulligan has done some very fun things with gods and clerics having that kind of push and pull relationship on each other in some of his Dimension 20 stuff. And I'm like, that would totally work in the
Which Dimension 20 things, just because there's a lot of them. What are you thinking about?
I will say the Fantasy High series has gotten into it. Particularly the most recent one, Junior Year, has a lot of, I would say, different clerics and gods who are being affected by their worshippers or conflicting faiths within the same religion.
Small Gods by Terry Pratchett.
Yeah.
It's something that's, I think, has been explored in a couple of properties in different ways. It is fun, though, the parallels between being shaped by perception versus the vessels who are being changed and shaped by the shard's intent. Right? So I think there's some fun parallels and contrasts. Like within the Cosmere there as well, right? Where like one is kind of being shaped from above, so to speak, whereas the other is being shaped from below, kind of. It's
like the shards themselves are just such near infinite sources of investiture. Even I think the faiths of an entire planet isn't going to make a dent in the intent of a shard, because it is just it's the black hole of intent and like cognitive force. But when you have someone who does not have that sort of deep source of investiture, who is maybe in Kelsier's position, receiving that amount of faith, I think you don't. It does have the potential to have a much deeper effect, which is fascinating.
I think Brandon could want to explore that aspect of faith. Like, how does faith affect gods? Like that's just such nice, good, deep fantasy things that like you can explore. I think that's cool. Yeah.
And this kind of goes, I'm gonna like the pitch for the Kelsier wants to shatter or splinter ruin and preservation or harmony.
Okay.
What if part of his like master plan is he's setting up this perception of himself that's shaping himself, and then if he breaks the shards into more manageable pieces so the intent isn't as powerful, if he's trying to find a way to like reprogram.
Oh, that's insane.
Like reprogram through like people, because like when you break investiture, like investiture naturally becomes self-aware and is shaped, like we know, like through the spren and like different things, right? Like if he's like, okay, this intent is too powerful, and I've seen like Sazed get like trapped by it and completely like consumed. We know in the Lost Metal that he knows like the concept of unkeyed investiture, right? Like with the like
so are you like saying like not only is he like trying to take up the set's work, make Mistborn with stuff, but also try and make a new shard or like reprogram a shard to be the shard that he wants it to be.
Well, I mean, if you reprogram the shards, you might be able to just get more Mistborn. You know, what if you could just have preservation give you more Lerasium, sort of a thing?
Well, I mean, that's certainly true. Mm-hmm.
You know,
Or
what's up with Harmony's perpendicularities? Where are those? What are they doing?
Well, there's one of them that's in the south.
Could he create the door in a more stable?
Yeah, he'd be interested.
I think. So I think that might be a little fun to speculate, but I don't think that is ever feasible in the Cosmere.
Mortal, maybe.
It's just too like. It's like, what if Kelsier's plan is to drink the ocean? I'm like, yeah, that's theoretically possible.
I mean, a fair point.
No, but it's
given enough time, Evgeni.
And the question of what he can accomplish and what he might be planning also.
That's also true. Yeah, but at the end of the day, we're talking about
more that you can chew.
It's a series of books. Yes, sure, but these books are going somewhere that.
Oh yeah.
You know,
but Kelsier maybe thinks he can drink the ocean. That's what I'm saying.
Could see it. I have just had the thought of like, you know, we have so much. Scadrial is about like magitech and finding ways to make technology work without in ways that were previously tied to people. I wonder if we're talking about like democratizing the power and things like that. What if the end goal is to have something like an allomantic grenade, but for the shard itself, where you have a shard that is intact, but does not have a singular vessel. And instead you find some way to connect it to the collective will of the people of the planet.
Whoa.
You know, which I think you could potentially run into like a Twitch plays the Shard of Preservation situation. But it's kind of an intriguing idea of like, what if the shard doesn't have to be splintered? It could be intact, but you could have like everybody in the world is kind of collectively the vessel of it at the same time and is shaping the will of what this power is doing.
Or at least a lot of people, maybe.
And I feel like you already have.
That's what harmony is.
You already have some seeds of that with like the people of Scadrial and making it like Scadrial specific. The people of Scadrial were created by the shards, which is one of the unique facets.
You can't sing a harmony as one person. You need a choir.
That's true.
We're getting some good one-liners here, guys. I like this. This is good.
I think we've been memeing about the shard of capitalism for a long time, but it's really the shard of socialism that's
I think harmony might be the shard of socialism.
They're going to think that they need the shard of capitalism, but they really need the shard of socialism. And there's where we get the not only the political intrigue, but the politics. Yay!
Yeah.
And I think the main thing for that, from a balance perspective, would be if that is the type of plan they're trying to pull off, whatever ends up getting pulled off, they would not be able to channel the full power of the shard, right?
Yeah.
Like because if they could, then it's like, it's not like then Scadrial just has a shard cannon. They can like destroy other planets.
I think what you're describing is everyone's an avatar.
Basically. Kind of.
Mm-hmm. I think like maybe not even directly invested like that though. Like if it is just maybe you don't even get to hold the shard's power within yourself as an individual, but rather just your own consciousness and cognitive aspect is contributing to what the shard thinks and believes. Like
we're sharing the load also of the like intent corruption.
Kind of this vibe.
Yeah, I don't think it works that way though.
That's what I'm saying. I think they need like a technology thing to do it. I think they're going to invent something that can hack the shard this way, which also would potentially, if Kelsier is an individual who does not have to hold the power of the shard and deal with its intent, but is a religious figure who captures the hearts and minds of all of the people who collectively lead the shard, all of a sudden now he has a shard-like level of power in terms of the influence he has over the people control. Like, there's things you can do here that I think would fit very well in the Kelsier MO and do fascinating things with some of the potential themes we've talked about.
It just feels weird for the Cosmere.
The Cosmere's weird. What are you saying?
Yeah, and so for something to feel weird for the Cosmere, that says something about that thing.
It is just kind of the thing with the Cosmere. How do you deal with the shard problem that, like, I feel like we eventually need to deal with?
That's the central.
Yeah, well, like, what are we doing with Adenalcium, right? Like, that has to be the resolution to the Cosmere.
Well, and that's the question that started the Cosmere too, with the shattering, right? Like, what do we do with the Adenalcium? These 16 individuals apparently decided
kill it.
Or whatever they did, and now we have the question of, well, did they do the right thing or not? And are our characters now going to do something different to deal with this power?
Oh man, I'm getting really excited about this. Like, I think there's some very fun crunch. Obviously, we're going to have a whole new cast. And it's impossible to speculate on any of that because we're just going off vibes, and there's a lot of fertile ground for storytelling, for things to spiral absolutely insane if this is Discord stuff.
Yes, completely new cast. I mean, obviously Harmony and Kelsier.
And we are going to have more Marsh stuff. Yeah.
Very important to note, there will be in-world comics inspired by, not inspired, dedicated to Wax and Wayne. So the same way we have like superhero comics in our world. Like, I think Brandon has mentioned like Silver Age Marvel comics as a comparison. So I think, did he also say that these were going to be like the broadsheets where we would get like one each time? So not completely new. We're still not done with Wax and Wayne.
No, know what I want with Wax and Wayne reference? I want a Mario Brothers type early Nintendo, like early 80s with like Wax and Wayne.
The Super Mistborn brothers.
Yeah, because we'll have video games and stuff. Yeah, that's cool.
Like early, because like, early video games was 80s too. So
I think I'm going to really like an urban fantasy vibe in Mistborn. Like, I think that's going to be really cool. One mob that I wanted to mention is this one from also 2018, so not ancient lore. This is the Skyward pre-release AMA. God metal alloys in Era 1 feel a bit like an unfulfilled promise. Can you tell us about the attributes stored in a metal mind made out of any atium/scleracium alloy? Brandon, no, not yet. This is something I intended to get into in Era 3, and I'm saving for it. I don't know what that means, but like... I'm glad that he's like, okay, I have these magic things. I need to explore these more. And I think God metals are a cool aspect that I was becoming convinced that they would never be relevant for anything, but...
Well, now that we have started making them again.
Yep. So that's pretty cool.
You know, maybe Navani, with all of her like combining and separating lights research, can help the Scadrians figure out how to separate some of their metals, you know?
Yeah, but
the technology's happening on the same different worlds.
Oh, I don't think the Scadrians and Rosharans are going to be like... There's no way that's going to go well.
I will be curious if any Nalthians are showing up, because like what we were talking about earlier with Tress, seeing a lot of hybridization between like Awakening and the metallic arts. I'm assuming the Awakening element needs to be introduced.
Oh, yeah. I wonder if Endowment might throw her locked. Like, if we are heading towards a galactic war, I wonder if Endowment might like hop on board with Harmony.
That and the general Cosmere level, like, does society know about the Cosmere as a whole and how much? Like, I wonder how much is that going to be in the background? Probably, I think. Still in the background.
I think it's the space opera era when that will be more. Like, I think it'll be more known about than it was in Era 1, but I don't think we're going to be fully out in the open. Like I think the World Hoppers will still be more of a behind the scenes.
I think the Ghostbloods, like, behind the scenes for the general society, I think they can absolutely be part of the cast. At this time.
I think Cyberpunk era is where we start getting some bleed of that into the general populace.
Yeah, that seems right. Where
if you do like magic internet, can you have interplanetary chat rooms?
Probably.
If in the two different planets.
Matt, in the spiritual realm,
you still have to deal with the FTL problem.
If you stick a Temukek in your hard drive.
Yes, if your hard drive is made of dragon bone.
God, imagine if there's just a dragon somewhere who decides to be the internet and just like lets a bunch of people connect through Temukeks to each other,
I'm sure there's a technological way to have that same effect, probably.
Yeah. Well, like something with like Seons or like, I don't know.
Yeah, but those are very limited, right? Because it's literally 1 Seon per Aeon.
Ooh. And the Seons remind me that Brandon's going to be writing Era 3 straight through, but in between, he's going to be writing Elantris sequels. And he clearly feels that this is important.
Oh, know why that's important?
Why is it important? That's what I want to know.
Because KIs,
code names.
What are the chances she's going to be a viewpoint character, if not in book 1, but in book 2 and 3?
Super high, actually. Yeah, for sure.
So, like, we get an Offworlder viewpoint, we get like Elantris connections, and that's why he needs to work out some of the timeline stuff.
Okay, sure.
Well, she is a protagonist in Elantris 2.
Yep.
Yeah.
Clearly, we have seen the Ghostbloods are doing some stuff with Cell based on
the door,
Lost Metal and Rhythm of War. They have a Seon that Maurice sends with Shallan, but also we see the Lost Metal. They have Purified Door, so like clearly it seems like Cell is hosting some kind of Ghostblood activities that they're getting stuff.
Well, to be fair,
even if not from there, at least related to there.
To be fair,
and
we see
Shy is also
Door.
Shy's Cellish,
Shy's from Cell too.
Right.
She is. We do see Purified Door over in Sunlit Man. They have an investiture cell. Like the time tellers.
Time tellers,
yes. That's later.
Much
right?
later.
That is later.
Are later.
That is later, but I don't think it is that much. Like, I don't think Sunlit Man is space opera. I think it is closer to Era 3 than.
No, I
But the
disagree.
Night Brigade is very space
in spaceships.
That's true. Okay, yeah, I guess.
I thought Sunlit Man was like one of the latest ones. I thought we got an answer about that.
Yumi is the latest, but then it's Sunlit. I mean, sorry, Sixth of the Dusk is the latest. Yumi is before that, and Sunlit Man is before that.
But Sunlit Man, you also have the Skadrian, like, moon base. Well, it's not a moon base, but you have the base on
the
planet on Canticle.
Is it called Canticle?
It is called.
And Yumi clearly has some like interstellar travel going on with like the space station that they.
If there's space, it's space opera. It might not literally be it's space age, but it's not that last Mistborn trilogy where crap's going down, right?
My thinking was, Nomad says they've only experimented with space travel for the last century or so, and so we are kind of early into the space age of the Cosmere.
Sure,
but yeah, still space age.
I view the 3 Cosmere secret projects as, in my head, as all kind of being like a prelude to that final era. Of
Mistborn
of the Cosmere. Like I'd say they're like early or like just before.
I think that's fair.
Because like the sorceress in Tress is also very advanced beyond anything. She has a rocket. And a lot of like tech that is mixing metallic arts with aeons, with awakening.
I wouldn't be surprised if we see something like, I think Brandon has room to fudge Nomad's perception of how long it has been in terms of time. Because I think, for one, he's clearly had a very constantly moving life where maybe he has not had an ability to track time very well. But I think we've also just seen a lot of the like longer lived characters tend to like underestimate how long it's been since a thing they're trying to remember. So I could see a thing where like Nomad thinks it's only been a short time, but it's actually been much longer. Could make sense.
Yeah. As we were talking about Cell, it makes me wonder if we'll explore the idea of the Ghostbloods versus the Irie and how that relationship goes, because that seems that could be a reason why there's Cell stuff.
Because other than the sorceress, is there any sense that the Irie have survived?
Wasn't that Ryaino guy in Shadesmar? Wasn't he a member of the Irie in like Oathbringer? Wasn't he an Irie guy?
Don't remember.
But so we've seen like people who we think might have been part, but like
he was.
Does the organization persist? Like we've seen like individuals.
So he must. It must, because when Hoyd narrates Tress and is talking about him joining, becoming an Elantrian, he's talking about the sorceress. She is a member of a very exclusive organization that you need to get an invite to join into. So it is possible that he's talking about Elantrians in general. But I think he is specifically referring to the Irie.
The Irie, yeah.
No,
that's cool.
Yeah, I don't think Brandon would just like destroy like a hook for what's going on with Cell like that.
Well, I was just thinking, if we're doing a Ghostbloods Irie plot, like what if the Ghostbloods like ate up the Irie, or like, but I think the Irie is, it sounds like they're still around, so probably not.
I think what we are looking at here is the entire Cosmere at one point or another realizes that the door is a resource, and they just start farming it.
And it's like a battling over that.
Yeah, they're either battling or they're like sneaking jars or whatever. I don't know how you do that, because it's like investiture, plasma, deadly storm.
But who knows?
I think Cell has the most world hoppers, though, of any planet.
There's a lot of Cell influence.
Like there's Galadon, Ka's, whatever her name is.
You get there one day.
Shy.
I mean, didn't they used to just dunk bad Elantrians in the perpendicularity and just
but the problem is
go in there?
It's a deadly storm on the other side.
Yeah,
supposedly.
Maybe you just like drift through it. If you're an Elantrian, you can't die.
I would love some answers on how that mechanics goes. Like I think I need to see someone go in the pool and see the plasma storm and what that's like in the Elantra sequels. I know we'll do another episode eventually for Elantra sequels. But I want to know what that's like. I also want to know like how Raoden's new Elantrians are related to the Irie, if at all. Like what's going on with that and stuff, right? Like Raoden could just exist. like way later, right? Like he could just be like a guy, which is weird.
Because I think Elantrians are functionally immortal, right?
Yeah, they're only gonna die when they're like, I don't want to be alive anymore, right?
And in terms of the invested, like they're on the upper, upper tier of invested beings
they're insane
as well.
So,
which is crazy that was the first book we got, right? Like Elantris
only works because Elantris didn't work for most of the book.
Yeah,
you know,
and it requires some work to get it to work away from Elantris.
Yeah,
right?
that too.
Yes.
Yeah, like maybe the Irie and code names and stuff like that. That's going to be important stuff. With
I would
gonna work.
love to have more Shy Moonlight.
Oh yeah, there's the whole thing with Shy. Like we have to deal with that eventually, right? If Shy is going to be involved in Era 3 with Ghostbloods? Are they going to get Shy back? Because there's that sort of cliffhanger at the end of Lost Metal where she's like lost herself and stuff.
But if Shy somehow ends up being the Mistborn serial killer.
I mean, they did lose track of her.
It is my secret identity, Kelsier. No, it is my secret identity, Shy Elariel.
Yeah,
the Mistborn serial killer.
Shy Lariel.
There you go.
Lariel. Very good. I believe it's supposed to be pronounced Shay, actually.
Shay, right.
But I'm not going to do that just like Vivina. I'm not going to do it, Brandon.
Then it will be Kelsier.
Yeah. Kelsier.
There's a ship name for you, you know?
Yeah.
You know,
hey,
I think that'd work.
Who knows?
I like that. I dig it, actually.
We were talking in the pre-show whether he's still functional.
and Alyx had that base there too. Here's another random one, and this is something to chew on. This is from the Shadows of Self release party, and I remember that. And the questioner asked to get signed in their book for a future quote of Harmony. And Brandon said, "That's clever. No one's ever done that before." And Brandon wrote, "It is yours." And he says, "I don't know if that will actually be the quote, but you can come ask me after Mistborn 9. And I don't know if that's going to be the end of that trilogy or the middle book of the trilogy. Just with counting, are we including Lost Metal? It's like Lost Metal would be 7, right? So is this
how many books were out when that was that Shadows of Self?
Yeah, so like bands would be coming.
So he knew at that point because he wrote.
He would have known Lost Metal.
Okay.
Yeah, because at that point he wrote Shadows and Band back to back, right?
So he knew that there would be another book. I guess I don't know how much of Brandon's counting skills that we should take too deeply into account, but
I do feel like there's a possibility that in his head it's a trilogy. And so the end of the third trilogy is 3 times 3, 9.
Oh, that's possible too. But
yeah,
it might not be in this trilogy. It might be in the space opera one.
I think it's Era 3 though.
Yeah, I think the question is it the middle of Era 3 or the end of Era 3?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Any thoughts? I'm glad I found this. This is a hard mob to find. And if you hadn't heard of it, that's why you're here, because we'll get you the weird arcane ancient wobs from nearly 10 years ago. That was 9 years ago. Oh, I hate that so much.
If we're going with this idea of like the plan to democratize the power, like there could be it's yours, and it's a quote from Harmony.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like if I could see it like Harmony giving up the power in some way, whether it's to a new vessel or to Kelsier or to some device or the people.
A shard giving up the power is always a thing that I think is an interesting shard aspect that we haven't seen on screen. But I don't know, as much as I want Harmony to be dead and for Kelsier to murder Sazed, because I think that'd be very crunchy, I don't think that's going to happen. I think Sazed's still going to be around.
I feel like Kelsier or Sazed are going to die in
Yeah,
Era 3.
That's possible.
And I feel like Kelsier's whole stick is surviving. So of the two, I feel like...
I mean,
like
he's
the
died
meme of
before.
Kelsier, the meme of
Stop
Kelsier
last time.
dying and not stopping, I feel like has to continue until the last. Like Brandon's kind of setting him up as an anti-Hoid, right?
Yeah.
So
I do think Kelsier's endgame.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Maybe Sazed tries to kill Kelsier and
Much to
Autonomy or
my
someone else
dismay.
remakes him, and then he goes, Sazed, I'm here to bargain, and it just keeps happening over in a time bubble or something. Easy. Yeah, I think it's just hard for me to exactly know the state of both Odium and Harmony for Space Age. I just don't know exactly what that's going to look like. Like, I think the shards are going to matter there. Like, they have to matter.
Yeah.
Right. But I just don't entirely understand. Like, is Sazed going to be Discord? Is that just going to be his new state and he's going to figure out how to work there? I don't know if I agree, Alyx, that Discord's a failed state. It's different doesn't mean failed. You just need to change your perspective, Alyx.
I mean, I think the reason I say that is that I don't think the concept of Discord is one in which preservation and ruin are both being expressed. Being in discordance does not mean you are ruining and preserving in a way that I think feels like it's right. I mean, I don't necessarily think harmony is it could be like, I think harmony could be a state where like you're ruining what needs to be ruined and you're preserving what needs to be preserved.
Yeah.
But I think like
he's not
the
doing
idea
that
of
either, right?
Yeah.
the idea of like Discord as like what is ruin and preservation within the concept of being in Discord.
Yeah.
It just feels like it's the intents don't agree with each other and they don't want to work together, which doesn't feel like it's an actual viable state.
I could see it going from him doing nothing to like being erratic and being like, oh, I'm preservation, ruin, and like
really like instead of the pendulum always being straight down, it's swinging all over the place.
Yeah.
Just what you said, Alyx, I just want to remind people about that thing in the Ars Arcanum of Lost Metal where Chris said, like, ruin being in subservience to preservation. Like, that's how she described it. And so I could definitely see Discord being
and she's
flipped.
Describing the current state of harmony.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I would agree. Like, Sazed is keeping things kind of the same at a detriment, and he's not letting that ruin aside kind of act.
And really keeping things the same it's not harmony, it's preservation.
Yeah. And so I could see Discord being that flipped. I'm destroying to protect and stuff.
I also think that, I mean, it doesn't even need to be like destroying to protect. It could be I'm destroying here and I'm protecting there.
Sure.
Or not even protecting, like preserving.
Get screwed, Northerners or Southerners, whichever one my coin flip lands on. The other one's getting wrecked.
Let's get whimsical.
Yeah.
Can
have Whimsy involved. Whimsy's nipping at the buds, ready for that alien invasion.
It's not autonomy, it's whimsy. I also think that, in a way, a fail state of these two shards is them just dropping on the ground, right? Like, if you are unable to, like, it's like the big thing when Sazed ascended was that he was able to find a way for preservation and ruin to coexist and to work together, and the two shards merged into one. And so if he fails to do that, if he fails to make the shards work together, then they are no longer together. They separate and they go. And so Discord must still be a state in which the two are combined. They are Discord. They're not ruin and preservation. And so what does Discord look like that is different from harmony?
Yeah, I think there is probably like I feel very strongly that there is a way to arrange these shards and their intents in a way that can be both have an ability to be active while also not having the shards feel like they're incompatible with each other. I just think it's very difficult to find. And I think that is probably what a lot of Era 3 is going to be, is like this intra-shard negotiation within Harmony.
And CZ figuring it out. Yeah, I can't read Lost Metal and that like shadowy CZ without thinking that that's going to be a thing that's immediately for this next era. And I do think it's pretty cool. Like, this is one of the originally planned books. You know, things can get real spicy shard-wise.
Well, and speaking of the original plan too, like, because Discord does go back to his name shall be Discord, but they shall love him for it.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, it's something Brandon has been thinking about, even if there's not like a strict, like, this is part of the prophecy. Like, this concept is something at least Brandon has been thinking about since the origins of Mistborn.
Yeah, that easily could have been a thing that he put in epigraphs as he was writing the book straight through, and then he's starting to come up with like, okay, here's second trilogy, third trilogy. I have a page outline or something, just like the broad strokes. And it's like, okay, well, there's going to be, I know Sazed's going to ascend. What's he going to be dealing with? He's going to be dealing with how these shards are working together. How does that work? We'll give it a Cold War vibe. You know, a Cold War vibe plus Harmony, like having two warring shards. Like there's so much symmetry here that I'm like,
That's the third Cold War.
The third
layer.
Cold War is within Harmony, yes.
Yeah.
Easy. One for each book in the trilogy. There you go.
It's two sides of a coin all around, and coins bring it all the way back to Era 1, and it's just the entire trilogy is infused with the Mistborn essence.
Watch us just be so totally wrong about all this. It'd be really funny. But
I mean, like we've speculated about so many things that they cannot all possibly be true. Right?
I mean, definitely, like, some of the things are going to be there, but
yeah, I think I just have enough of, like, I almost have a metagame sense of Brandon put the concept of Discord out there so clearly that I feel like you can't play it straight. He's going to have to zag on that some way, because he's the plot twist guy. If you just say Discord is a thing over here, and then we go into the book and, oh no, Discord has happened, I'm like, it feels a little too straightforward for a Brandon book. You got to have.
If Discord was the big twist,
right,
he would have been quieter.
You wouldn't have told us in Lost Metal is my vibe. So
I
think Discord's the threat that we're trying to avoid, but we're gonna get something else.
So I disagree, because Brandon has always been okay with like certain things being foreshadowed and guessed by the readers way ahead of time, and it's about the delivery and execution of those things. Like Kaladin's fourth ideal was a secret to no one.
No.
And the cool thing was how it happened when it happened.
And I cry every time, even though that's basically what I knew the ideal was going to be. Yeah, exactly.
I just feel like crazy shard stuff he likes to hold closer to the chest.
So my thought with that, Alyx, is it's mystery versus suspense. So now we have this aspect of a suspense where it's like, oh no, there's this very bad situation. We're going to try and mitigate it. Maybe works, maybe doesn't. But even if Discord happens, I think we kind of need that to fulfill the prophecy. And like, what does that mean? They call him Discord, but what does that mean to be loved because of that? Like, I think that's kind of a bit of a promise. But at the same time, when you have a shard that's literally now like Discord and chaos, there's a lot of potential surprising results that you're like, wow, yeah, I could not have, in retrospect, that makes sense he would do that, but it's just like, oh yeah, he just destroyed that entire place. Like, that's oh no.
I also don't know how he would do this, but I could see a world where the twist is Discord is the like good outcome. Right? Like
I could say I could see that. That would be Zag on it. Yeah.
A Zag, and then like, you know, if like it's yours plays into that somehow. I don't know, but
I think I just love the idea of like a narrative device that sets up a clear threat of like, this is the bad thing that we don't want to get to, that we're all avoiding, and we're putting all of our focus into avoiding that state. Okay, it didn't happen, and then you look back and it's like, oh no, accidentally something worse happened.
That's very Mistborn.
Very well of Ascension.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
That is also very well of Ascension, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
This like Discord is the thing we avoid at all costs. We're constantly worried that Harmony is going to slip and become Discord. And okay, I think maybe we didn't do Discord. And it's like, oh, but in all of the process of avoiding it, you've made things so much worse than Discord would have been.
I can so see something where they're trying to prevent Discord, but then we're getting like other shards are trying to do alien invasion, and then we're like, actually, we kind of need that. And Sazed turns to Discord, destroys, just annihilates them, but then is also going to do crazy stuff on Scadrial, where it's like, well, we did solve that problem, and that's good because that would have been very bad. But now we have another very bad thing to deal with, right? Like there's lots of ways to make this work.
And I wonder too, like, I know there's debates about how far the prophecies extend, but like, how long was Lyras's long game? Like with some of this, and then, but also like it's all been corrupted too. Like this is what's so genius about the prophecies is we have no idea what their end state is supposed to be, and then we don't even know where they're, you know, it's although the epigraphs are kind of represented as the truer version. Like usually it's in the text that we're getting the corrupted version.
But like the stuff Quan got has been corrupted by many cycles, right? So like it's hard to truly know. But
and then with cycles, are we gonna like end this era on another like society breaking event? Right? Like it like
I think for one of the two halves of Scadrial, maybe. Probably not both, but I think it's possible a nuke is shot or Discord did something and destroyed 90% of one of the continents or something. I think that's possible.
I mean, you keep coming back to this idea that like Discord is going to do something very directly destructive, and that sort of gives me the thought that if it did happen, I wonder if there's sort of shardic consequences, because shards aren't supposed to just be going around smiting people. There's supposedly very big consequences if you take direct action in that, like the other shards can come get you and stuff like that. Like,
would that be really problematic for Sazed to do? I think he could smite people if he wanted to.
I mean, maybe, but
I think if you're in a contested place, like that's a very different story. Like with autonomy in play, like if there's other shards, yeah, but if there's no other agents there, like why not? I don't know. But it would be interesting to explore what that extent is, because it's all very loosey-goosey, right?
Yeah, I'm just thinking like if all the other shards are a little bit worried about how strong Harmony / Discord is as a double sharded shard, and then Discord does something very direct and opens himself up to like another shard's retaliation, maybe somebody takes that strike.
Well, and thinking about it as maybe people are letting Sazed be because they assume he's like balanced and canceling
just hanging out.
Basically.
It's not odium, it's fine. Like,
but
odium's way worse.
his threat level goes up all of it. Like, because if he's not a threat despite his power because he's just kind of stasis, if all of a sudden he is becoming very active, then
I do think that would be a thing where other organizations or shards start getting very worried about, right? Like, especially autonomy, right? Like, come on, like, autonomy's not going to like that at all. Although autonomy kind of wanted Discord, I guess. It's a little interesting.
You kind of think about like what happened when you had like another shard's god metal touched et metal, and the explosive consequences of that destructive potential. Like, is that sort of a thing that is manifesting in the shard as well, that nobody wants to touch it because that's a very volatile situation.
Oh, and Harmony's the real nuke all along.
Yeah, he's the shard of nuclear fission.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that's one of the surges. Or something, I don't know.
I'm actually was there before the surges.
It was always, it was in Eight and Elsium's plan, it was always one of them, yes.
This is too mechanical. All right, we have to wrap it up, guys. We gotta stop. The Realmatics has started.
Yep. I don't know. I think it could be possible that, if Discord's book 2, then other shards start coming in book 3. Like that could be a thing.
I hope not. I do really want it to just be Scadrial and very minimal stuff from the rest of the shards. I didn't enjoy that Lost Metal got all Cosmere at the end.
Yeah, but you can set it up right. You can set it like there's a way to do it where, like in Era 1, where it's been seeded and so it doesn't feel like it's out of nowhere. And like, I think Brandon writing it straight through, he can make it feel consistent, which we've never really gotten since Era 1, right? Like,
no.
If he knows what he wants the ending to be, what Brandon often does to revise is he just, fixes the beginning so it actually sets up the thing he wants, right? And so if he wants a thing, he can make it happen.
And you're right, he hasn't done that with a Cosmere series
ever since
the first books.
And those are some of the tightest, foreshadowed stuff. And so
and even some of his side projects, are any of those written straight through?
No, I mean, they haven't been
Reckoners.
No,
he took breaks with that, right?
And I mean, all those non-Cosmere books are break books.
Yeah.
Skyward, I think, ended pretty well. There was a plan, he executed it. It wasn't like what we had with Era 2, where it feels like we were. I would say it's a little all over the place. I think that's a fair assumption.
Like the first book came out in 2011. Yeah. And the last book came out in 2022. Right. So he's in a different headspace as a writer when he's,
Yeah. Era 2 told very interesting stories, I think, but you can, looking at them as like a full set, you can see there wasn't an overarching plan for the 4 of them.
Not at the beginning,
and that's why I think the middle 2 are the strongest, because they were
written,
they were back to back, and they were kind of responding to each other in some ways.
Yeah, I can see a lot of like the things I really enjoy in Era 2 are the things that are self-contained to the books, because I think that's where those books are the strongest. And I think that is probably why Lost Metal sort of didn't necessarily hit for me, because I think it was trying to be a climactic conclusion to these 4 books, and we've led all the way up here, and I'm like, I don't really feel like we led all the way up here though.
No. It really feels like a standalone, a duology and a standalone.
Yeah. And like in some sense, when you call it Ghostbloods, I feel like Cosmere connections have to increase just inherently. So like,
oh yeah, no, from here on, like gloves off and the whole conversation.
Yeah. So like,
I don't think we're ever getting back to like alloy level of
no, never.
But connectivity.
I think you can still have there be like Cosmere connections without them needing to be the central parts of the plot.
Yes. I would like it if it's like the Ghostbloods is the driving force, and then the Cosmere connection is like, oh, some Ghostbloods have powers from other worlds, right?
Oh,
but it's still
it's gonna
like,
be more than that, Matt. There's
Yeah.
no way it's just that.
yeah, but like make the primary motivations about Scadrial.
I mean,
Yeah, I want this to be a Scadrian book about Scadrians figuring out their planet's place within the Cosmere amongst themselves. Is what I want. And maybe I'm not going to get that,
you
but
might not get that. To me, the Ghostblood part of Lost Metal was the best part of the book for me. And I can see how it doesn't fit with the rest of the thing. But if it's just like gonna be more of that, like, okay, cool. That's my favorite part of the book.
yeah, I find particular, and it may just be that like it hasn't really clicked with me yet, but I find like in a lot of the secret projects in particular, the parts where we bring in something that's like, here's the rest of the Cosmere and it's going to be here for a little bit. I'm like, I don't like this actually. I kind of wish this wasn't here. I wish we were spending less time with it, which maybe that makes me a weird Cosmere fan because like, I think that's a lot of what people like is like, we want to see all of the worlds coming together. And I'm like, it feels messy to me when it happens. I'm like, I want a book that's about itself. I don't want a book that's about the 17 other books that are also happening.
And that is certainly like the MCU level issue, right? Where you're trying to do a thing, but like if you have too many people, if you give too much homework, eventually people will stop caring. Like me, I don't care about what's going on. Haven't seen a thing in a while. But at the same time, like I do think things are going to get more connected. And if you're writing Ghostbloods, I think people want to know, okay, what are the secrets the Ghostbloods know? And those secrets are going to be about the greater world. And so we have to address those, right? Because that's the whole thing. That's like, hey, I'm dangling these keys. Look at all these secrets. Don't you want to know all these cool secrets that I know? Like this stuff you thought that was cool in the book, that's just the surface. There's so much more. And so for in the Ghostbloods, we're going to get what those true secrets are and how that connects to greater things. And that, I think, is a promise inherently with the Stormlight Ghostbloods and Lost Metal, right?
Interesting. I guess I don't see it that way.
Like,
and I'm not interested in it, but yeah. What interests me about like the idea of Mistborn Ghostbloods is I think the fact that our introduction to the Ghostbloods was Offworld and it was the Rosharan branch first. I want to see what the Ghostbloods are like at home. If they are an organization whose goal is to protect Scadrial at all costs, like that's the bit that interests me of like, how is this a Scadrian organization with Scadrian goals? Even if they have branches off world, even if they've got their feelers all over, this is the mission, this is the core. How is it different than this off-world branch made up of off-worlders?
Well, and we haven't seen a lot of Scadrian Ghostbloods either.
Yeah,
we've seen Mraize's what's her name?
Yatel.
But she's not Scadrian. She is Silverlight.
Right.
She's
exactly
of Scadrian heritage. Yeah.
Yeah, but so like that's one thing that's always puzzled me about the Ghostbloods after the Lost Metal, is it's like you're kind of a Scadrial first organization, but there's not many Scadrial people in your organization.
That's fair. That's interesting.
You know, so like why? I think if this book Ghostbloods focuses on the Scadrial Ghostbloods that we haven't seen yet, more so than the Offworlders, that might be fun too.
So the problem is, it feels like Kelsier's kind of inner circle is, you know, not international, but like interplanetary.
Right? That does seem
Shy
to be the case.
is there, Twin Soul is there, the Laval is there. And so I think the Ghostbloods as an organization, certainly they started as a Scadrian thing, right? You got to start somewhere. But I think the way they've developed is oh, the Ghostbloods are a source of secrets and information that is so lucrative and tempting that people beyond Scadrial will agree to put Scadrial first in their agenda in order to get access to these secrets and this power. I mean, it's not like power, but it's like information is power.
And then
And
Kelsier gets their secrets
Mm-hmm.
because they're
Yeah.
Offworld.
Yeah.
And so it's,
I think the other possibility is the cell of the Ghostbloods that we saw in the Lost Metal has a higher Offworlder component, and there might be other like smaller teams that are have a higher.
Certainly there are, but my impression was that this is Kelsier's crew.
yeah, that's his new crew. So like this is like, presumably there's probably other Ghostblood cells on Scadrial, but this is the top. You're right under Kelsier.
These are the chairmen of
yeah.
I didn't get that. Did he say that? I thought it was one of his crews, but I didn't necessarily get that this group we're seeing was the top of the top.
I don't know.
I could be misremembering
I think
this.
maybe it's not clear.
So correct me if I'm wrong. What I remember was that Moonlight was offering to become a mentor to Marasi
Yes.
in the same way that Twin Soul was a mentor to Moonlight.
Yes.
And in the same way that Kelsier was a mentor to Twin. So like, I think that's the chain here.
Yes. So what I'm thinking is Kelsier's like crew inner circle is like Twin Soul from this group, like the tops
And
of the
some
chain.
others.
Maybe.
I see.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's kind of like how his old crew worked. Like Breeze had a team
Sure.
and Ham had a team.
I see.
And Hubs had a team.
That's all possible.
I think that's still possible, yeah.
I could also see it's possible that despite the sort of Scadrial first aim that the Ghostbloods purportedly have under Kelsier's leadership, him avoiding recruiting Scadrians because he doesn't want it to necessarily get out that, this religious figure is also running a criminal organization that's running around and doing clandestine ops and has these, Marasi is a survivorist, and it might have been that she was an exception, that she got extended an invitation, but hey, now you have somebody who is a devout survivorist who has realized the survivor's still around and kicking and doing stuff, and they just have to hope she keeps her mouth shut about that. Like you can see, I think it's Yatel's brother, Dlavil, who's like, oh, we maybe need to shut her up. Like, this is a more dangerous secret on Scadrial, especially I think if Kelsier has plans for his churches. He may need to remain a religious figure that is not known to be active, which is why maybe it's easier to recruit Offworlders than it is to recruit Scadrians.
To be fair, we speculate that he might have plans with his churches, but that's not something we've ever seen any like he doesn't seem to even he barely acknowledges the fact that he's a religious figure, let alone do anything about it.
Yeah.
The last time, the religion's original purpose was to inspire the people to rebel after he died. Like that's why he set that up, and we haven't gotten much indication that he's given it much intent since then.
Yeah, ever.
Yeah, I could see it going either way, where it's possible that he does these things where he's set up a religion for a specific short-term purpose and really isn't thinking about what it's going to be 100 years down the line because he doesn't really care. He's like, whatever, do your own thing, make up your own theology. You overthrew the final empire. That's what I needed from the Church of the Survivor. It can be whatever it needs, whatever you feel like. I don't want a part of it. It could all, and maybe there was another reason why he felt like he needed to be the sovereign to the Malwish.
Baffling. Yeah.
Could be, I think, also potentially sort of like a crockpot situation where he's like, I'm just going to let that be a thing until I find a use for it. maybe he has some long-term ideas about ways he wants to use his churches. Maybe he never thought he would really use that religious devotion again. Maybe it's something he's going to have an idea down the line and think, oh, hey, maybe tapping into that. So yeah, it's interesting. I think Kelsier's relationship with the various faiths that he has established around himself is a very big question mark. What does he want from them? How does he view them? What does he see his role? Does he have plans for them? Like, those are all questions I think this book has the potential to get into for sure.
Yeah. Bringing it back a little bit, I do just want to say, Alyx, I think protecting Scadrial and Scadrial first, yeah, it's from people who aren't on Scadrial. Like, they're going to be, I think, combating people who aren't from Scadrial at some point. Like, I do think that will 100% be the case. So it easily could be that you don't like the direction of the Cosmere, where it's more Cosmere connections, and the balance of Cosmere versus what the book's supposed to be starts to not work for you, which could be the case. Like, it's hard to say. I do think it can make a lot more sense in a new trilogy where we are setting up new expectations, right? As opposed to like Rhythm of War, where people are like, I don't know, it's pretty Cosmere-y, right? Or Lost Metal, where it's like kind of near the end, and where maybe it's seen as breaking the promise. I think we've discussed a lot of Scadrial plot lines, and so maybe with Cosmere stuff, it feels too busy. But I do still like Cold War within a Cold War, right? Where like we're trying
within a Cold War.
Within a Cold War. There's 3 Cold Wars here. And so I think it's easily possible that we could have some outside factions, and the Ghostbloods are like, I'm trying to get the tech level to be the right thing to fight off these other guys, and these other guys are fighting these other guys, and it's just all this massive web that's insane. And that all of this can come together for these Offworld groups to maybe make an appearance at some point. But I do think you need to set it up in the first book, for sure.
Yeah, we'll just have to see, like, I think what the Cosmere connectedness of the plot is. You know, I think the Space Age trilogy has always been like, that's going to be Cosmere wide, I think.
Yeah, I don't think it's just going to be Mistborn guys.
Feels like it's the implicit promise of that one.
We're going to have Shards and stuff, for sure.
I don't think this one has to be that. And that's why I would say, like, I would prefer if we had something that was just a little bit more Scadrial focused. Like, we can be on a world that has Cosmere connections without the Cosmere connections needing to be the center point of the story, is my thing.
But wouldn't it be so cool if you're worried about an alien invasion, which honestly, I still want a Cosmere alien invasion story. There's so many different potential aliens all over the place. And then Discord just is like, yeah, they're just all dead. It just kills them all. And then it's like, okay, well, yeah, the book's not going in that direction. Just, oh, you're going through Shadesmar? Bye! Just annihilate them all. Like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, I like the rest of the Cosmere as like the pressure point, as the external threat. Like, it would make me like Lost Metal more if all of the Scadrian factions are pointing at like Autonomy's incursion as a reason why we need to act the way we do.
True. Yeah.
I don't necessarily want something that is as specific as like Autonomy's, even if it's a different faction. Like, I don't necessarily want that level of like, somebody from Offworld is here and doing things, and they have a faction that's part of the plot, and they're part of one of the threats.
Yeah,
the Scadrians are interesting enough. Let the Offworlders step back and let the Scadrians have the mic for a bit. Is my vibe.
It does seem like a very busy set of 3 books.
There's a lot going on.
Final thoughts, guys.
I wanted to just quickly scroll through the list of WoBs that we have,
our giant
and
list.
Highlight anything that we may have missed.
Yes,
as interesting. One thing that came from 2016. So Not, kind of long ago, but closer to present day than to the beginning of the Cosmere. Someone asked about the book that Brandon is most looking forward to writing / letting us read. And Brandon said either Stormlight 9 or Mistborn 10, where Mistborn 10 is the end of what at the time we knew as Era 2, but it's the 1980s. So it sounds like the ending of this of Mistborn Ghostbloods is going to be
something he's really excited for.
That always makes me really excited when Brandon's really excited about an endpoint, because that's like, okay, all right, let's go.
And you guys, like, I'm such an Era 1 Mistborn boy. Like, the idea of like trying to of having, and I haven't felt like, because of how he's written things, an experience like that again. So like the idea of having another like that is very exciting to me.
It's gonna be awesome to get like these books like right in a row as well. Like that's gonna be a fun time where we're really gonna get to speculate like between the second and third books again. We're bringing it all the way back to theorize with a very different, much larger fandom to try and get those theories down for the last book.
There's another one from November 2016, the Arcanum Unbounded release, where he's asked about what Chromium does with Furukami, and he says we'll deal with exactly how fortune works in the Cosmere at a later date. There's a reason I haven't shown somebody with it yet, because I'm saving it for later on. Let's just say that even the Terrace people don't quite understand it, even during Era 2.
And he said Atium is supposed to foreshadow fortune, so that would be very appropriate for Scadrial.
So, well, also, like, I'm just thinking again, like, because the prophecies were such a fun part of the... What if the computer programmer girl's computer starts talking to her? Like, if there's, like, a fortune thing coming through, like, the computer, or, like a new... Or, like, if the brother is Chromium faring, or... Since they are Terrace, even though she has...
I think that's why people got Mandela affected to think that it's a Nicrosil faring and not a Nicrosil misting. Do we think there's going to be epigraphs?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a thing that Brandon likes to put in a lot of books.
Era 2 is just an aberration. just a fun thing, but this is the big boy books.
It's the side one. Yeah, like these are like the Stormlight Archive like Mistborn.
These are the Edge Dancers and the Dawn Shards of the...
These aren't the Edge Dancers.
So like the Era 2 was.
Era 2. And this is now the
Ghostbloods
main event. There's so many weird magical effects that are going to be very interesting. And that potentially anyone could have with medallions. That's going to be cool.
And honestly, we don't have, like, Era 3 feels far away, but so we are in the middle of 2024 right now. Brandon's current plan as of the 2023 State of the Sanderson was for him to start publishing Mistborn Ghostbloods starting in 2028 and do them once per... So like 2028, 2029, and 2030. Which is a great cadence, right?
I wonder how the Elantra sequels are going to fit in with that.
I mean, that was
thought he was going to alternate them. So
I thought so too. Did I?
So like ultimately, I don't know. 4 years ago was 2020, which was Rhythm of War era. That doesn't seem like that long ago.
Oh, we're doing 2 per year. Okay.
We're doing 2 per year? Okay.
So as of 2023 State of the Sanderson, 2028 is going to be Ghostbloods 1. 2029 is going to be Elantris 2 and Ghostbloods 2.
Oh, God.
and 2030 is going to be Elantris 3 and Ghostbloods 3.
Oh boy.
Wow.
So I think Brandon
Wow.
just hates having a buffer these days. That's what's happening.
He hates it.
Really?
But the buffer is like, because he's going to finish Stormlight Archive this year and it's going to get released, right?
Mhm.
Yep.
So like the buffer is from 2025 to
2028.
what was the first date?
28.
2028.
So it was
Like,
Ember
he's
Dark in
gonna
2025.
He's going to be building his, because he's writing things.
Yeah,
you
but
know.
he could
Yes, but
spread it
he
across
doesn't-
5
believe
years
him.
rather than
Right.
3.
This is the same thing as the secret projects. You can do, instead of doing 2 mainline big Cosmere books per year in 2029 and 2030, why don't you do 2028 Ghostbloods 1, 2029 Elantris 2, 2030 Ghostbloods 2, 2031 Elantris 2. Like,
Well, I think he needs the right, because I think he wants to have finished Ghostbloods 3 before he releases Ghostbloods 1. Or or at least wants a draft.
I am
of
talking
Ghostbloods 3.
publication schedule here.
Yeah, so but what I mean is he can't publish Ghostbloods 1 until 2028 because he needs that much time to write all 3 books.
Right. So I understand that.
Yeah.
I am saying, why is he rushing to release all 3 Era 3 books and the 2 Elantris sequels over the course of 3 years?
Oh, you're saying he should spread it out till 2032?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know. Brandon's a showman. Clearly, he's like, it'll be fine.
Yeah. And it will, like, there's going to be, well, and I'm convinced he's going to fit Secret History 2 in there somewhere.
Yeah, probably.
Because he's going to be inspired.
Probably.
I think there's no way we get to 2030 and Secret History 2 has not come out. If it hasn't come out by then, I don't think it is going to.
Yeah.
Because I think he'll have moved past it.
I mean, it depends on when that, like, because I don't think he's decided on whether Secret History 2 is going to be Spook, whether it's going to be another Kelsier, whether it's going to be Marsh. And so depending on which character it focuses on, it might, like, there might be different time windows for that to happen, right? If he's doing another Kelsier Secret History, then that can easily take place after Era 3 or during Era, something like that. Whereas if it's Spook, it probably needs to be sooner rather than later because he's probably going to start losing relevance.
That's not what his lineage says. He's always relevant. Okay. Yeah, really we're just going to have 2026 and 2027 without like the big Cosmere releases cuz 2025 we're going to have Ember Dark and White Sand
Rewrite, baby.
White Sand Rewrite, baby.
I'm not going to count the White Sand rewrite as
Well,
a
I mean,
major
Ember-
Cosmere release.
Ember Dark's going to be is going to be plenty for people, don't worry.
2031 we can get the Alloy rewrite.
No, don't even dare say that. Don't even dare say that. But like
That's
I don't
why
know.
he's rushing.
Well, he's gonna, this is so crazy to say, we're working on decades now. I think he probably wants to devote the 2030s. He wants to devote the 30s to the back 5 of the Stormlight Archive.
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Right. So I think part of him is probably thinking, okay, like I need to finish Mistborn Elantris
so I
in
can get
the
to Stormlight.
20s.
Yeah.
So that like Brandon has like he's scheduled himself to death in his head,
Yeah.
I'm sure.
No, he is actually.
Yeah.
Actually 30s and
Early 40s.
some of the 40s, right?
Oh, I hate
Because-
this conversation so much, guys.
Unpleasant.
I hate this
Hey,
so
Stormlight
much.
Stormlight 10, we are looking at 2045 ish.
I've been in this fandom too long already. I can't think like that.
And Alex is just like, God, these Cosmere connections. I don't like it.
There's
I know.
a possibility I'm gonna pay off my mortgage before the Stormlight Archive is finished,
That's
which is
also sad.
terrifying.
Not quite for me. I don't think.
Not quite. Yeah.
But getting getting annoyingly close. Oh, guys, do we have any other final thoughts, or can we go over to who's that Cosmere character? I'm really sad now.
Yeah.
I'm so sad.
I think we've reached depression.
I'm gonna cheer myself up again by saying, you know what? I think really quite nice to Kelsier in this episode.
I think you were.
Uh-huh. And so therefore I will finish by saying I want him to step on a rake and eat dirt in this series and for all of his plans to fail. The end.
Okay.
Well, I do
wrap it up.
Just self-care.
I do agree.
Soothing.
Kelsier making a big play and it blowing up in his face, it would be awesome. I think that is good, spicy stuff. That
Hubris punished.
Yeah, it kind of. Yeah.
Hubris is never punished.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah. Well, why don't you go fly right into the sun, Evgeni? See how it works. All right.
Call me Icarus.
Matt, any final thoughts?
I really want there to be a chase scene through like a dance club, like an underground dance party chase scene. With like the spy element, and as kind of like a replacement for the balls, if we're doing like kind of underground.
Oh, you have to have the nightclubs. Yeah, you do.
That's fun.
I hope he ties that in that way with some of the DNA.
What if there's a nightclub where it's like, ooh, it's a retro vibe and it's like a ball like that?
It's like a keep.
Yeah.
No, what I would love is
I
love the imagery of like it's like a place and there's like strobe lights, like the lasers, but then someone's burning steel or iron trying to chase someone by a steel or iron line, but getting their like line only they can see, confused with all the flashing lights or something like that. I don't know.
Okay, yeah. There's so many fun things like that Brandon's gonna be like, okay, let's do this. Yeah, because it'll be relevant for us, right? Because more modern.
As someone who has like written a lot of stuff in a modern day Mistborn, I'm like, I just want the coffee shop where you can go get a couple like flakes of steel in your morning latte, and that would make me happy.
I'm very excited for the Era 3 Diceborn season that we will do when we
coming in the 2030s.
Coming to the decade near you.
Oh no. So much editing. Oh no. Support our Patreon, please. Patreon.com/17shard.
He doesn't help us hire anyone because we can't hire anyone else because we spill too many secrets. But it makes us feel better.
Well, we also can't hire people because we don't make enough money to actually hire people to edit this crap.
There's also that.
We are not paid even remotely close to any reasonable minimum wage. So, Evgeni, final thoughts?
I also had an idea of like a noir like scene where someone like, the classic dimly lit room and like the person walks in, there's a detective, and like that's what kicks off the Mistborn serial killer case. I'm not super attached to it, but I thought it was a fun idea. Oh, final thought. I have this really, really nice Ghostbloods. Little. It's super shiny. You can't see anything, but it's a little Ghostbloods pin.
Nice.
Hold up, my microphone is here.
Nice.
Oh, nice. Excellent.
And I also have a raffle card in which Brandon drew a little tongue sticking out emoji.
Is that what you got at C2E2?
Yes.
Nice. Yeah. Go listen to our C2E2 episode where we talk extensively about cyberpunk Mistborn theories. So go listen to that.
Very excited about that. I know Era 3 is not even started yet, but I'm very excited about the cyberpunk one.
Well, you can just go wait for the 2040s, and I get that.
I thought we were getting away from this.
Let's head on over to Who's That Cosmere Character?
This character is from Roshar.
Menace. Tien.
Tom.
Raise.
Void in drag on a horse.
It's time for Who's That Cosmere Character? So, I don't know how long this is going to edit down to, but we've been recording for over 3 hours by quite a lot, and this might be one of the longest episodes we've recorded. So we're just going to do a single Who's That Cosmere Character.
Put in your predictions for how long this episode is in the comments below.
But they'll know how long the episode is.
No, they won't. No, they won't.
There's no way to tell.
They'll literally. Okay.
Try to guess what the name of the episode.
Why don't you guess how long the raw recording is? Because they won't immediately know that.
Okay, let's do that. Wait, did you not say?
You already just said how long you've been recording.
No,
I said
he said
over
roughly.
3 hours.
He didn't say specifically.
I said over 3 hours, but there's a lot that's over 3 hours.
Okay.
Between 3 and 4 hours. Guess how long?
Make it a math problem. What is the difference? How much was cut?
If the play button leaves station A at 3:12.
Stop! No, I'm leaving. What's clue number 1, Eric? Say
I didn't do my intro. Welcome to Who's That Cosmere Character, the game show where you send 5 clues in a character to wtcc at 17shard.com. I read each clue aloud, and after each clue, these guys have a chance to guess who's that Cosmere character. Because we've been recording a long time, which was my point, I'm doing a priority queue because that's what happens when you pay us on Patreon. And if you're one of our heralds, you can get in our Who's That Cosmere Character priority queue, which I will prioritize because it's
how priorities work.
It's how priorities work. And so this one is sent by Brosenthal Uo, and clue 1: this character has a nickname.
Cultivation.
It's not cultivation. I like that though.
Numuhukumakiakiaelunamor.
No.
I would argue his nickname is not a nickname. It is his name.
Well, I mean, he has a nickname called Rock.
Yeah, I don't consider that a nickname.
I'm gonna say Breeze.
Not Breeze. Nope. Clue 2. This character has a position of status.
Waxilium Ladrian.
Nope, it's not Wax.
Edwarn Ladrian.
Not Edwarn. When's Bloody Tan coming back? Why did Brandon Raffo me about that?
I was thinking about Bloody Tan a couple times.
Like, how is that possibly going to be relevant with all the other crap we talked about? I don't know.
I
Whatever.
think sometimes he doesn't know. Yeah.
If he doesn't know, why didn't you? What's Luther about? Yeah. In 2045, I'm gonna be pissed.
He's still Raffo's mayor stuff because it might be in secret history.
No,
one of these days I'm gonna get the story about Zane's Spike. So
you're just gonna keep asking it every single one until you get it to be about Sisek and fit it in.
Brandon, I got OC backstories to write. I'm gonna need this answer.
I'm gonna submit this Fanon Bible to you if you can just please sign
Can you just sign this and sign off on that? That'd be great. Thanks.
I have the most worthless venture cousin for you to kill. It would work perfectly.
My guess is Dalinar.
It is not Dalinar. Clue 3. This character has a dead sibling.
Vin.
Not Vin.
Kaladin.
Not Kaladin. Yeah, I mean, they have positions of status. Yeah, for sure. That's fair enough.
And Stormblessed. He has a nickname.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is a nickname, but Shallan?
What's Shallan's nickname in this case?
I was like, she's got like a
Shelly.
Okay.
Those don't feel like nicknames.
Well, it's not Shallan, so there you go.
I mean,
Little Knife is a nickname. Little Knife is a nickname.
Okay. All right. Fair.
We worked it back around.
Is it?
Yes.
Clue 4. This character, as far as we know, doesn't use an invested art.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, this is a good set of clues. The next clue is also going to be very useful.
So sorry, it's dead sibling, doesn't use invested art, nickname, position of authority.
Yes.
Scoot.
It is Scoot. But I'm told to give you a side eye for using the nickname and not their actual name. That is explicitly written here. Clue 5 was this character's sibling died twice.
Yeah, that's nice.
I like that. That's good. Very good. I like that.
I need to reread Warbreaker. I love Lights.
I know, right?
Like some of the characters from like Lightsong and Larimar
They're really good.
They were really good. Yeah.
Mhm.
Hey, when are we getting Nightblood 2045?
I don't think we are getting Nightblood anymore.
Yeah.
Cyberpunk killed it. Man.
We'll see.
We'll see.
I mean, I think Stormlight killed it, but
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
I think he might work some of the stuff from it into other things.
yeah.
Mhm,
yeah.
mhm.
Well, we will have to see. Well, anyway, because we've been recording for a trillion years. Trillion. The Cosmere's done, actually. We did it, guys.
Actually, Trillion.
We've recorded so long that several Brandon books have come out in the course of recording.
Honestly, the sun is about to explode.
Actually, yes. Well, I mean, it's already exploded if it's been a trillion years. Surprisingly, the internet's gone great through this entire thing. It's really, really quite amazing.
Those awakened circuits we have.
They used to build things to last, man.
No.
Not these days. But we hope you enjoyed this episode. You can come on 17shard.com for all news, discussion, theories, and fun that you could ever want, which hopefully will still be around in the 2030s when these books come out.
Jeez.
Well, we'll be somewhere on the internet.
Yeah. We'll
do
a few decades under our belt already as an organization,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
We'll do another laugh at our old theories podcast.
Yeah.
Just rewatch
These will
these.
be the old theory.
Oh, I hate that. I hate that. I'm so sad. If you're younger in the fandom, that must be nice.
Congratulations.
That must be
Yeah.
nice for you.
The real messed up things is that there are people in the fandom who have been alive longer than we have been in the fandom.
Yeah.
Sure, sort of
What?
the other way around.
I thought we were not going to think about the incredible amount of time that is passing and that the Cosmere's been going on. We keep falling back into this trap.
Well, it's because it's a pitfall, and you fall in the pit. That's how it works.
I wanted to be in the pit for this. In the pits of Hatsin, really.
We gotta
yeah.
sign off so I can get rid of this existential dread.
Just add that to the one-liner list. I think we got some good ones. And you can support us on Patreon, patreon.com/17shard. We commission cool art. And you know, it helps make all this happen. So then we're a bit less sad. just
That's what we're going for. A bit. That's actually our new tagline, 17 Shard. A bit less sad.
That's our 2040s tagline, actually.
We're in our golden era, you guys. I think this is.
Are we? I don't know.
Also known as the Middle Age Crisis.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Oh no.
All right. Okay.
All right. And we're on social media and stuff. And you know, don't drink the ocean.
Don't drink the ocean.
Don't drink the ocean.
Don't drink the ocean.
Bye.
Bye.
Caw. Wow, did you try it? You try and steal my caw? Wow. Wow, the nerve.
She got caught.
I almost said, peace, gotta go fight some aliens.
Oh, I'm still recording, so I can put that in there.
Okay.
So there you go.